some changes. It's a little slower than I'm used to, but we'll deal with it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting at all special taxing districts. This is the January 20th, 2021 meeting. It was postponed from the 18th because of the holiday. Normally, when we have a meeting on a Monday that falls on a holiday, we move it to the Wednesday after. So this is why we're having a meeting this Wednesday. Board members will attend in person or by telephone or remotely via electronic conferencing. The first item in the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please stand and face the flag? Supervisor Pancras will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you all please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, the first item in the agenda is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public benefit to allow individuals, to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and the decision at a future date. Anyone who's concerned about COVID-19 and does not want to be put into an open setting can submit an email, call to the public statement at publiccomment@yumacountyaz.gov. These email forms of public comment will be accepted until 8 a.m. the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read aloud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that starts at 9 a.m. Do we have any emails?
No, we do not.
We do not. I do have a speaker form here for Ann Stewart. It doesn't say here there's an agenda item that you want to talk about. So if you want to address the board, you're welcome to. Ann, come on, please.
Good grief, I didn't want to be first.
Well,
I'm Ann Stewart. I live at 4626 East County 16th Street, and I wanted to address you this morning and thank you for having me and allowing me to vent my frustration. And this is in regard to the trash that we have across our county and city. As I said, I live out on County 16th Street, so I usually direct people to my house down 4E. And for quite some time, I realized that it was basically a trash yard all the way down that street, and I vowed to do something to clean it up. So last week, my daughter and I got the truck out, and we head out to pick out the trash, knowing that County 12th Street up to 32nd Street was the heaviest of all of this trash. And I know that's not in the county, that's a city, but it's part of 4E. We started there, and we thought, well, we'll go up to the light at 32nd, turn around and go back. Well, we got to the light, and the back of my truck was full of trash. So we pick it up. I go across to the other side, and I can't get more than maybe an eighth of a mile, and I just can't get any more trash packed in the back of my truck. And so I go home, and I'm riding on the back of this trash to keep it from falling out as we get there, but I'm thinking, what is going on here that is causing so much debris to be in this particular area? And I know the swap meet is part of it, but there were some interesting things that I picked up that I couldn't figure out. And one of them was used rubber gloves that are used in surgery all over the road, hair nets. Why would there be hair nets alongside the road? And then I noticed that we had a lot of egg crate partitions that you cradle the eggs in. And I thought, what is going on here? And then I remembered finding a collapsed cardboard box that said hard-boiled eggs in this great big huge crate. And then it clicked. All of these things are to do with the people that are being transported out to the fields in these buses. And so I thought, well, maybe the county could do something to persuade the owners of these bus lines to put trash cans on those buses and then have their people use those trash cans instead of throwing their trash out on the road. So I'm dumping out all this trash and everything, and I realized that my daughter and I cannot pick up all the trash around the county. So I'm thinking of what I could do, and I began to watch other areas in town that had a lot of trash building up. And I noticed at 3E and 32nd Street, that would be the southeast corner, it's a vacant lot. And I was going by there the other day, and it looked like we were growing a field of plastic sacks out on that lot. There were a lot of dead weeds there, and they were caught in the wind and billowed up, and it was just horrible. So I thought, I have to figure out something I can do. And so I discovered many, many years ago that most of the state of Arizona, I think most of us here in Yuma, can neither read nor write. Now, this doesn't bother me so much anymore, but it does bother me to think that they think we're sloven or that we don't care about our community. So I decided to come and address you today to see if maybe we could work together to get this mess cleaned up. I'm suggesting that you consider creating an ad hoc committee that is responsible for spotting areas around the county that need to be cleaned up, and then appointing somebody within your group that's responsible for hearing about those areas and deciding whether or not it's something that you would like to get involved in and get cleaned up. If you decide that's something you'd like to do, I would like to volunteer to chair that committee. And what I would do is put eyes out all over the county that would report back to me when they find something especially egregious. And I would then contact the person that you've appointed to hear those complaints. And then maybe together we could begin to clean up where we live. And then if that happens, you could call me Ladybird. Thank you.
All right, well, it's refreshing to hear someone that comes in with a problem, that comes in with a solution, so we'll certainly look at that.
Well, I didn't want to be just complaining. I wanted to offer something that I thought might work to help.
All right, well, thank you very much for your suggestions, and we will have the proper people who look into that, and I know that Susan will direct it to the proper authorities.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you.
You do have her address and her phone number. It's here, so, okay, we'll contact you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the board on any issue that isn't in the agenda? Doesn't have to do with garbage or trash? We'll move on. All right, then we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations or may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal action will be taken. Does anybody have any appointments? I do have a comment. We did all supposedly got a report on the Board of Adjustment's attendance, and I don't know, if everybody has an appointment in there that they like to continue or whatever the terms. But I'd like to make a point that my member, who happens to be the one that attended the least, was hit by COVID. It's Mr. Harper, Alex Harper, and he was out of commission for quite a few months. So he did contact me and told me and explain his absences, although it may not be necessarily a reason, but at least he did call me and explain to me why he was missing so many meetings. He asked me to continue to be a member, and I said, fine, just make sure they attend. And I want to just pass on to you supervisors that if you see your member kind of not attending or something, that you kind of take the next step and find out what's going on, and if need be, appoint someone that can actually do something about, the issues that come forth, okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
The person that was appointed previously by Supervisor McLeod happens to be my wife. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a conflict of interest.
Well, I don't know. I don't think you want to appoint.
We were aware of that. We don't believe there is.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. All right, so that's the item there. The first item in this, other than proclamations and appointments, is the presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel, and that's what we'll listen to and watch, hopefully.
Are you curious about the COVID-19 vaccine schedule? We've got the details. In an effort to keep patrons safe, some local businesses are extending their business to outdoor areas. And with COVID-19 numbers still high in Yuma County, some county offices have closed to the public. These stories and more, this is your County Line. In late December of 2020, the Yuma County Public Health Services District received their first allocation of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, 5,800 doses, from Arizona Department of Health Services. The Health District has distributed the vaccine to our local hospital and clinical providers qualified to administer the first round of shots to the Phase 1A category of individuals. Now that Phase 1A workers have received their vaccinations, the Health District has opened up vaccine appointments for 1B category individuals.
So it's so important that when you can get vaccinated with the coronavirus vaccine, that you come in and get vaccinated. We want everybody to get protected as soon as they can, get their first dose, get their second dose when it's available and when they're able to get it, and just get that immunity up and get that protection in the community.
The Phase 1B prioritization group includes education and child care workers, protective service occupations, adults 75 and older, essential services, critical industry workers, and adults with high-risk conditions in congregate settings. Remember, to be eligible for the vaccine, you must be a member of the current or prior phase and provide appropriate identification once you arrive at the vaccine site as part of the verification process. If you've been to downtown Yuma lately, you may notice some businesses have extended their operations to outdoor areas. On November 2nd, 2020, Chairman Reyes issued a proclamation to promote social distancing in county businesses during the COVID-19 emergency. The owner of Jimmy D's Bar, located at 38 West 2nd Street in Yuma, contacted the county requesting to enter into an agreement for the temporary use of 4 parking spaces, consisting of 920 square feet located on county-owned land.
The Board of Supervisors is on board with allowing business to extend premises. In this case, it allows for more social distancing at Jimmy D's, access to fresh air, and really makes it safer for everybody.
An appraiser determined the value of the property and a lease rate was established. With approval from the City of Yuma and the State Liquor Authority, the 6-month lease on the county's property went into effect December 22, 2020. With COVID-19 cases still high in Yuma County, some county offices have shut their doors to the public, but will still be providing services by telephone or other electronic means. The assessor, recorder, treasurer, and election service offices located in downtown Yuma are taking precautionary measures to encourage social distancing and compliance with protocols provided by our national, state, and local leaders. These offices are still open for business by phone, by email, and by appointment as available to provide service. The goal is to keep you, your families, and Yuma County employees safe and healthy while still providing necessary services and ensuring your needs are met. On February 24, 2021, the Heritage Library will turn 100 years old, and the Yuma County Library District will celebrate 100 years of public library service. Over a century, the Yuma County Library District has grown from a modest one-room Carnegie Library to include a main library and 7 branches. As you can imagine, 100 years of existence includes many achievements in service, technology, and collections. The library district is also sharing photos every week on social media. Staff are recording virtual programs about the library and life during the 1920s to present on YouTube and Facebook. They've also put out the call for residents to share fond memories of visiting Yuma libraries. To tie everything together, a Centennial logo was created and limited edition library cards are currently available. For more information about the Yuma County Library District Centennial, visit their webpage at yumalibrary.org. Before we head out, we want to recognize Griselda Cordova, Deputy Yuma County Attorney, for winning the award of Juvenile Prosecutor of the Year for 2020. Griselda's dedication to justice and her surrounding community is reflected in her untiring work both in the office and out. In addition to carrying a full caseload and acting as a strong advocate for victims' rights, Griselda works tirelessly with all stakeholders involved in the Juvenile Justice Center and participates in a variety of outreach programs. Congratulations, Griselda! We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'd like to leave you with a message from Yuma County employee Richard Rodriguez, telling us why he loves working for Yuma County. We'll see you next time.
My name's Richard Rodriguez. My title is I'm a senior operator. I've been with Yuma County 33 years. From day to day, we're asked to lead crews. I run blades, run a crew. There's usually two of us, a water truck driver and myself. We do our maintenance routes. They give you a lot of opportunity for training. You meet different people, different clients, you know. Supported my family for 33 years, put kids through school. They had opportunity to go to college because of this job, you know.
Well, and on that note, we're coming back. I think, did you want to say something? No?
I'm just looking at you.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I just wanted to say something. I mean, there has been some noticeable changes in some of the, especially the way they look, the way this presentations look. I wanted to acknowledge the fact that this is an ongoing work all the time, and I know that the team that puts them together doesn't get enough kudos. They don't. I mean, they do it automatically, and we just assume that it's just something that happens, but it doesn't. It takes a team, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to just thank the team for putting that notice together. I know sometimes, especially when it comes down to some of the announcements, sometimes they're a little dated, and we're going to get into the county vaccination program, and I couldn't help but notice that every once in a while we cringe when something comes up in there that we kind of know that it's not working as well as it seems there. So I just wanted to let the team know that we appreciate their efforts in getting this information out, and that is an ongoing process that I hope will work in improving. Channel 77 is something that I think we need to start paying a little more attention to. It's the way that we communicate sometimes with people out there, and it just needs to, probably not only is it updated regularly, but it probably, we need to start talking about programming and cameras and, that area of the culture has gone so far ahead in terms of technology that I'm sure that Kevin and his team will probably have some ideas on how to improve the way it looks, because it looks a little dated sometimes. In terms of the sharpness, the HD situation. Anyway, we were hoping to get that solved with that new building and with all that new stuff, but we're certainly delaying that a while, so we may have to talk about that a little later. All right, so we'll move on then to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is where items are listed under the consent agenda, and they will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion. Unless a board member so requests, in that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. We have how many items? 6, 7, 8, 10 items. Does anybody want to pull any of the items for discussion?
Number 10.
Number 10, public health services. Okay. Anybody else?
And number 7.
And number 7, the Caterpillar
Yes.
interchange. All right. Anything else? So if only 7 and 10 need to be pulled out, I'll entertain a motion to approve Well, wait a minute, I want to pull number 8. So we will have consent calendars 1 through 10 with the exception of 8, 9, wait a minute, 7, 8, and 10. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so there's been a motion and second to approve consent items 1 through 10 with the exception of 7, 8, and 10. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. We'll open item number 7, which is to authorize the Public Works Director to trade in 2001 Caterpillar 140H motor grader to Empire and one 2003 Caterpillar 140H motor grader. So that would be two, one 2001 and one 2003, to Empire Southwest for a credit of approximately $99,200 to be applied towards the purchase of new equipment. B, to authorize the Public Works Director to purchase 2 new Caterpillars 140-15 motor graders from Empire Southwest in a net amount not to exceed $540,518, utilizing National IPA contract number 161534. And C, to authorize the Public Works Director to enter into a guaranteed buyback and return condition letter with Empire Southwest contingent upon legal review. Your question, Supervisor Pancrasi?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank Josh. Josh, thank you for all the work that your employees that you supervise, are doing. Today is a good day to thank them because they are going to be doing a huge amount of work in the next few days after this rain or during this rain. They do a wonderful job, and they work very hard, and thank you. We do need new equipment, and I'm glad to see that you're doing it, you're staggering it, and you're just bringing it slowly or surely as we can afford it to get replacements. So thank you.
Right after those things, I'm sure that Supervisor Borges would agree with me that the condition of those roads up in the valley out there are starting to deteriorate really fast, and rain only makes it worse. I mean, those potholes are going to get bigger, they're going to get worse. And some of the roads, I mean, when you drive through them like I do most of the time to get to Yuma, they're starting to get really in a pretty dire condition. I do hear from the Cocobah tribe every once in a while, and when I hear from them, normally they're complaining that the mix of traffic between tractors and trucks and people working in the fields make for a very difficult road condition situation in those areas out there. So just pay special attention to them right at this time of the year. I know every road in the county, gets traveled on, but some of them get traveled a lot more in the winter than in the summer. So thank you very much for the work, and we're giving you more.
Go ahead.
Oh, so,
Well, I was just gonna say too, this time of year especially, harvest is going on, the rain on top of it, tractors are gonna be parked in the road, they're gonna be turning in the roads, trailers are left in the roads. Everybody, please pay attention to your driving. I can't count the number of accidents that I went to that were involved as far as leaving equipment in the roadway, especially after it raining, because they can't get them into the fields a lot of times. So just be extra cautious with this weather.
Yeah, we're not accustomed to rain like California. When it rains, everybody just goes crazy. Driving.
You will see along the road, it says workers in the fields or along the road, and they ask you to slow down. I would really like to ask drivers to please heed that warning and slow down. These people are working back and forth across the road, and they need to feel safe. So that's another comment right there.
All right, thank you very much. It was supposed to be one of those situations where you step up and say, we said thank you, but
Yes,
you
thank
can't
you.
waste the opportunity. Do I hear a motion to approve the item as presented?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Motion and second to approve the item as presented. Any discussion on the item? If no discussion on the item, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I don't think we got you yet. We got 2 more items. So I saw you standing up. Maybe you're just stretching. And we're talking to Diana Gomez, the health director, who's next in the agenda. But I saw her stood up, and I said, okay, we got a couple of more items in there. Item number 8 is Public Health Services, authorize the district director to accept the federal cotton spray. Well, that's why she got up. I'm a little slow this morning, as you know. It's the rain, I'm not used to it. Yeah, I didn't realize. I was just gonna
What
make
can
a
I
comment
say?
about it.
It's, yeah.
And Feral Cats Spay and Neuter Award issued by the Arizona Companion Animal Spay and Neuter Committee and authorize the Board of Supervisors to match funding in the amount of $5,000 from the general fund. Forgive me, I thought you were coming over to talk about the overriding issue that is going on right now, which is vaccination. So I didn't want you to step in so quickly. Wanted to give you a little more time to relax. But anyway, this is about all the comments that I've been listening to and hearing about this program, and most of them, if not all of them, I can remember, have been positive about getting involved in this type of program. And in the feral cat population, especially in unincorporated areas, is getting to be a major problem. And I don't see any other positive way to deal with this. I mean, I certainly don't condone the actions of some of these people that are really making this problem, be a lot worse than it is. But I mean, we're not going to be able to deal with, human nature is to try to help out most of the time. And so I appreciate programs like this coming on board and actually showing people that, just like the garbage situation, when somebody makes a comment, there's a reaction from the county. So to me, this is a good opportunity to let people know that not only do we care about what's going on, but we're trying to find ways to help out. So.
Thank you, and thank you for matching the program. And we're working really closely with the Humane Society to continue to provide education to the public and raise awareness about alternatives like this. I know it's really frustrating, but these are small steps.
Mr. Chair, Diana, do you have any idea what areas they're going to focus on?
It's open to, this particular grant is for unincorporated areas, so it's just the incorporated areas.
Unincorporated.
Unincorporated,
Okay.
yes.
Supervisor Porches.
Would it be possible, or I know it's probably too late, but maybe get the cities involved? I mean, I know there's a lot of areas within the city, and what I'm saying is like for them to also match, what we're doing, if the cities can put in some money, and because there's some areas in neighborhoods in some cities that, I mean, it's really bad.
Yeah. I live in a city in San Luis, Arizona, and I tell you, in that block where I live, there is already a problem, and it's not getting any better.
And I know that the Humane Society would definitely be open to that. This is an open, it was an open grant opportunity that cities are likewise eligible to apply for. So that information is shared, and I believe the city of Yuma has a similar program.
Well, we need to transfer to South County and back to Welton and places like that, because it is starting to happen in those unincorporated areas.
I've got it in my neighborhood.
Oh, I can.
But yeah,
I
the
can
Humane
name
Society
them.
would definitely
I know
be
the
open.
subdivisions, yes.
Well, thank you. And this was again one of those, items where we just want to bring you up to thank you, and then we ended up with, the expanded please kind of thing. So, yeah, this is what we can always blame the rain. So,
We'll get
thanks
you
a
a
lot,
Barstool.
Diana. We'll get this approved, and hopefully it leads to more of the South County cities taking the approach that we need to do something about it before it gets worse.
Mr. Chair, and thank Annette for all of her work at the.
This is a thank you
She does
session.
this live thing on Facebook that's really good.
Would you like to make the motion to approve the item as presented?
Yes, I move that we approve number 8 on the consent agenda
As presented?
as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's been a motion to approve item number 8 as presented, and there's been a second. Is there any discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And then we'll move on to item number 10, which means you remain in front. So it's also the Public Health Services District, and it's to authorize and approve the salary for Sara De Leon as a part-time public health nurse practitioner, position number 7026.002 at a grade 146, step 20.5, effective January 2021. You asked for that.
In my reading, it said, when I was reading all this, it said that one section of the explanation was part-time, the other section was 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So is she going to be full-time or part-time?
I believe it was 30 plus hours, and so that's what the
So it's considered part-time if
It's
it's 30?
considered full-time.
It is considered
I think it's just the
full-time.
way it was worded, yeah, and I apologize, I didn't catch that, so I could see where that would be confusing.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we're approving it for a full-time position and
Mhm.
not as a part-time
No, it's
position.
not part-time, and actually, that was one of the things that we were struggling with recruitment of a part-time. So we worked with our human resource department and finance to up the hours and make it a full-time position. So I think maybe it might be 35. I'll have to double check, but it's full-time, and so that enabled us to actually recruit. And so, as you know, we remain the safety net for many of our residents, and we run clinics. I know that right now we're all thinking COVID, but this actually helps build our clinical team and provide those valuable services to many residents who otherwise might not be able to access them. I will verify, but it is in fact full-time.
Thank you.
And I want to specify, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, the item as agendized would be correct as a full-time. It's just to approve the position and the number and salary.
Got it, thank you.
All right, so.
You
I
would need
thought he
to
was
make a
trying to-
motion that it's full-time, because the motion is stated as part-time, so
Okay.
don't say part-time, just
I
say.
will.
So the motion will be to authorize and approve the salary for Sara de Leon as a public health nurse practitioner, and that, just leave the part-time part.
Full-time, yes.
The posting allows us to discuss it and make changes as we go along,
Okay.
so I think, I saw the attorney waving, some signs, and
Oh,
I
I'm
thought, that was a good sign, but then again, so, okay, so that, the item is, it's been a little bit changed, so would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Yes,
Question?
I'd move that we authorize the approval and approve the salary of Sarah De Leon as a full-time public health nurse practitioner, position number 7026-002.
All right, just before we get to vote, okay, that's been a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Just a question, are you able to recruit, have the changes that you needed been made?
Yes. Changes that we needed assistance with had been made, and they've helped us in our recruitment.
All right,
efforts.
because this is a very difficult time to be recruiting nurses or practitioners in the health field, considering what we're going through. So again, thank you very much for the efforts, and thank the Human Resources Department for being able to adapt quickly to the needs that the Health Department is experiencing at this time. All right, so there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Remain. And we will go on to the discussion and action items, where the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first item is for county administration, and it's also the public health district, emergency management, discussion and possible action regarding COVID-19 updates and activities. Okay, so, all right, so I'm gonna let you start, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, so we actually have deployed additional vaccination clinics or set them up. And so our first clinics that we're scheduling for were for this Thursday and Friday. We opened up the phone lines yesterday, as well as access to the online portal, and all the appointments filled up within an hour and a half, less than 2 hours. And so we used a phone system the first time around to help 75 and over, and it worked really well. And it was a way to assist with people that did not have access to technology, or maybe were frustrated by the portal. So there is a 1-800 number that residents have the ability to call and get assistance to a state level. We thought it'd be a lot easier to do it internally and help with that process. So it worked very well the first time. We tried it again this second time, and so we had multiple people answering phone lines, but we had 1,000, roughly 1,300 appointments, and obviously people were trying to get in, and it was very frustrating. And we're actively working on a solution. The phone system was not designed to handle that, and so I apologize. I'm aware of the frustration. It was our intent to.
I'd like to step in here because it's really not a health director responsibility. The county phone system is not designed to allow for hundreds of people to call in simultaneously, and we thought we had tried to beef it, and it really didn't work very well the first time. We tried to make some adjustments to the second time, and it still didn't work. So we're looking for outside resources to have a different kind of phone system that allows for people to queue, to be on hold, to know how long they're waiting, and to get through. Because
we had 15 people answering the phones, but the 16th person obviously isn't going to get in. And we've got hundreds of people trying to get in simultaneously. It didn't work. The idea was to help, to assist people, especially elderly people who are not comfortable with the portal online. And so, as we like to say, no good deed goes unpunished. It didn't work, but we are committed to making sure that we have a functional system outside of our normal system that will work prior to any new clinic registrations happening. So ITS and health and myself and emergency management are working together to create a solution that will work for people. And we do apologize. We're going to send out a press release of apology and explaining what happened and how we're working on it later today. So I just wanted you to know that. It didn't work very well the first time. It didn't work very well the second time. We've learned a lesson to do an outside resource that actually is robust enough to handle the demand. The biggest problem is we have a very little supply. And what's good about our community is that people want to get vaccinated. We don't have this hesitancy, which is great. But now we need the supply to meet the demand. And so we've been advocating at the state and national level for more vaccines for Yuma County. And so we hope that everybody who can hear this presentation is able to advocate on our behalf as well. So I just wanted to make sure it's not a health department issue.
I think we were going to get to that. We were going to get to that. So it was just a little bit, of the explanation. Ms. Supervisor Lyons, do you want to say something before you continue?
Is it possible, to Susan's point, Mr. Chairman, to find out if we are able to use an existing phone bank type company to receive these calls? Is that something that we could do, at least so that people can talk? I had a number of calls over the last couple of days of people dialing, and they showed me their phone line 250 to 300 times and not being able to get through. And then they start calling us. And I appreciate what's happening, but there's a lot of frustration, and I'm grateful that people would like to participate and get the vaccine, but they can't get an answer, period.
I happen to believe that there's almost no way that you're going to be able to keep people happy when you have such a low supply of vaccine. I mean, it's the reason you have the problem you have is that in an hour and a half, you set up 1,100 appointments or whatever, and you still have to stop. Now, if you had 12,000 vaccines, you could do 6,000 appointments.
Right there.
So, that's really the crux of the problem. The crux of the problem is no matter what system you set up, there's going to be a few people that are happy and a hell of a lot number of people that are unhappy. So even if you set up a system, a queuing system, which is probably the only real good solution, is to give people a number. So when they call, they have a number. And as you open up the news, the new section of vaccines, that number will be respected, so people will know they don't have to. The difficult part is when people call and they don't, they call, they missed it, they don't get in the system because it's, you're overwhelmed or, whatever. And it doesn't matter if you call at 101, which is, if you open the phone lines at 1, and at 101 you call, and you happen to be the 16th person or the 25th person that calls in, or the 35th person if you had like a call center situation, you still will have a problem because that 26th person that didn't get in wouldn't have a way of knowing that. It would be just a matter of, we're full, call back later. Well, call back later is the disappointing part, where you call 30 times, that I got 30 or 40 times, and you never get a number, you never get an answer. And then the lines fill up, or the positions fill up. It's a very difficult situation that I think is driven by the lack of supply. As long as we get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 vaccines, and we have 20,000 people who want to get them, and we keep opening up new sections. And, we're not done with section 1. We open up section 2 because the pressure is, okay, why can't I get one, right? And then we open up section 3, and we haven't even done section 1 fully or section 2 fully, and we open up section 3. It's really, we're going faster than the supply allows us
There you
to.
go, right there.
And I think that that's going to create a problem no matter what system we set up. There's going to be people disappointed. So what we need to do is tell people, be calm. This is as fast as we can go, and be aware that we know you're in line. I think that the queuing system will help us do that, because even if you call in and you're 1,700, if that's the number you got, at least that's the number you got. The problem is that people don't know, You know, they keep calling. The system doesn't tell them, you know, you're caller number 55 and the waiting time is an hour and a half. They don't know anything. And they get frustrated and they call us, you know, because it's fine. I mean, that's what we're paid to do, you know, listen to these people. It's just that I appreciate the message that the administration is giving us all in that, look, we know there's a problem and we're going to work the best way we can with the system, but the system is not going to address the main problem. The main problem is your supply. You know, you get people in South County, for example, that we're probably going to have to take the vaccine on the road. That's probably what we're going to have to do to be able to cover some of the areas that are not getting coverage.
That's what I was
You know, and if we can't, and as a county, we may have to pull back in the application of the vaccine and allow some of these other people to apply it themselves. That way, you know, you're set up to do a certain number, and once you get that number, you have to send them to somebody else. Because I think a lot of these people who need the vaccine are not very mobile. I know in South County, if you don't take it to South County, I know farm workers are in the fields, for example, and they're not going to come to the county health department to get vaccinated. We're going to have to take our show on the road or allow people who can get on the road to do some of the vaccination. But I want the message should be, as far as I'm concerned, to the people in Yuma County, that the issue, we understand the issue to be the fact that there's a lot more people who want to get it than people who don't. And that as long as the state and the federal government keep supplying us with very low number of doses, we're going to end up sending people to farm, what's it called? State Farm Stadium in Phoenix, where they do 24-hour vaccination. So you drive 400 miles to get the Pfizer vaccine. And the problem is people who go there and say they got it in 30 minutes, it's what people listen to. It's what people hear, right? And they think, why can't they do it in 30 minutes? Why can't they do it in Yuma County in an hour or 2 or 3?
They're
We
filled,
try.
Binding,
It's
by
not
the
gonna-
way. They are filled.
It's not going to, you know, and this is, you're supposed to be given a report. And now what you're listening is sort of like a gripe station. But that's all of us trying to help you to deal with the problem that we all know it's a supply and demand problem. It really, everything else is just trying to fix that problem. And we're not going to fix that problem until the state or the federal government decides to send a large enough number. You know, and the problem, people listen to other places where they have 50%, they can only apply, have been able to apply 50%, and they think you're saving them or something. And it's a really complex problem. This rollout of the vaccine hasn't worked out as we thought it would work out. I think that that's not something that we have a solution to. It's something that the state and the federal government need to step in and address. Supervisor Lyons.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a baseline for the 1B? And is that baseline affected by our proximity to Mexico with people needing to get it, coming over, being able to register, and our winter visitors?
Oh, winter visitors, I can tell you right now, yes, winter visitors affect that. People coming from Mexico, they need to prove they have residency, physical residency, not a P.O. box number or something like that. So they have to prove they have residency, and they have to have an ID, which we call a official government ID, which we now include the matricula, whatever it's called, matricula consular, which indicates that you're in the country and you live in the country. We had that issue at the beginning of the process, which I think the health department addressed pretty quickly. You know, people coming over from other places trying to get the vaccine. Now, what I was told, Supervisor Lyons, is that this is a federal program. So if someone from California comes over and for some reason gets into the queuing system, in other words, they get an appointment, they'll get it. Okay. And I want to emphasize to people who think they can drive over to Phoenix to get it, that they physically can, but that they're going to get a different vaccine type than the one we use in Yuma County, so that you have to make a commitment to go there and get it and then go back and get the second dose in Phoenix, because we're not applying that particular lot. You know, it's not Pfizer, it's Moderna. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, winter visitors are really good at it. They're really lining up. No, people from Mexico would have a real hard time getting in front of anyone from the state, because they would have to prove residency and some form of ID. Okay. Supervisor Simmons?
I just had a question. Who raises the tier? Who adjusts that? Because, you know, we're raising it, you know, we went from 1A to 1B, and now we're looking at the latter part of 1B. Or one
at a time.
I'm just
One at a
wondering.
time. The question is who determines when you move to the next
So we determined when we moved to the next tier, and we were in 1A, which was for essential workers and frontline workers.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we started seeing appointments slow down and we saw that there was no longer a demand for those appointments, we made a decision to move to 1B and start vaccinating some of those people in the tiered prioritized, which is our law enforcement. We did not, and their law enforcement, our teachers are 75 and older, because we did not want to sit on vaccine for 1 or 2 weeks. There was some hesitation among some of the first responders and healthcare workers, and they wanted to kind of wait and see. And that's that. There's some people are ready to get the vaccine. Somebody wants to wait and see. And so we made the conscious decision, like, to move forward and move to 1B and open those vaccines, because we knew there was a large segment of the 1B population that was able and ready to get the vaccine. Now, the issue with us for the 1B is that simply our 1B group is exponentially larger because where we live. We have our agricultural workforce, we have winter visitors, and we have our regular population. We have a large presence of law enforcement here in our community as well. So our 1B is significantly bigger. And so that's one of the things that we've been advocating for, larger allocations, pointing out that our 1A, which was for the healthcare workers and first responder tier, might have been smaller than some of the other counties, but our 1B is not. Yeah. And so we prioritized and we said, okay, we want 75 and older. We want, those were the groups that were recommended by CDC in Arizona, our teachers, childcare workers, and safety professionals and law enforcement. And then there was a move by the CDC and the state to move and include 65 and older. At this point, we could have said, no, but at this point, it's just about getting vaccines in people's arms. And sometimes the more criteria you put in it, the more difficult it is. And so the problem we're dealing with, I stood up here in front of you several weeks ago, for months now, telling people the vaccine is safe. When the opportunity comes, please take the vaccine. And people want the vaccine now. So now our challenge is the level of, or the dosage and the limited amount that we have, which is a good problem to have, that people want the vaccine. The challenge is being able to procure those doses in the amount that's needed to meet the demand. But our 1B group is really, really big.
So we won't open it up. The top tier are going to be the first three. It's going to be our elderly, our school teachers, and first responders. Because that is the big group. I can't see us opening up any further until that group is taken care of.
And that's why it's 1B, but it's prioritized 1B, because those were the top 3 tiers recommended by the CDC, as well as the state and the general guidance. And so, for example, our 65 and over group, the majority of that, they make 13% of our infections, but they make 70% of, they account for 70% of the illness and mortality in our county. So yes, getting through those groups is a priority.
And you probably already read that letter we sent to the state and to the federal government, explaining to them that we have sometimes up to 80,000 Buena visitors that come that are all over 65. Most of them are over 65, and a lot of them are over 75. And they come from North Dakota, they come from Wyoming, where they might be counted as population, and they come to Arizona, to a county like Yuma County, double the size of the population of that age group, and they send us enough vaccines to cover what they think is the population of Yuma County. This is not a very, very commonplace in the country. This is a border area where you have 12,000, 14,000 farm workers are crossing in the morning. You have a very complex set of circumstances. We have state prisons, we have sheriff department. We probably have the largest law enforcement contingency together in one place, other than in Washington, D.C., in one single place, between the Homeland Security people, which includes the Border Patrols. It is just a large number of people who can qualify for that vaccine at this particular time. And it just doesn't relate to the number of vaccines supply that we have. It just doesn't. And I was trying to convince Supervisor Simmons here on the side that the state and the federal government are the ones that determine when you open up to those different groups. And you just said that the county health department can do that on their own. So that didn't work. But it's true also that there's a lot of pressure when people read, and I read, that the CDC is saying that people, we should be vaccinating people 65 and over. When they say that if you don't use your numbers, they're not going to give you more. You know, there's all this pressure to get this vaccine out in the community that is working against you doing it in a way that most people don't get upset about the fact that they're not getting it. But I understand that the job is a no-win job. I mean, you can't win. You know, if you had a lot more, you still have people saying it wouldn't be enough. Because, you know, until you open it up to the general population, the effectiveness of vaccinating is not going to be felt until you have a large number. I get calls. I got a call to declare an emergency in this situation in the country. I said, we are in an emergency already. I don't have to declare an emergency. It's already been declared. I don't think we pulled it back. But, you know, then I see Tony here, Tony Badilla, who I think at some particular point in time, we're going to have to deal with this as an emergency. It's not a real emergency in the sense that something is happening that is impacting people's life all the time, but it is an emergency in the sense that people feel it's like, okay, this is an emergency. We can't get that vaccine. We're trying to get it. I think what you guys are doing in general, the administration and the health department, will help alleviate some of the problem. But as I said initially, this problem won't be alleviated until we have more vaccines that we can put in people's arms, and I don't see that happening in the very near future. I see that if at the pace we're going, we won't vaccinate half the people in this county by the middle of this year. That's my take on it, and it really is going to take a lot more in terms of being able to distribute to the different. Look, this is a very complex issue.
Situation, and
You know, they're
by
giving it to-
staying in 1A, we could have stayed in 1A and started waiting for additional vaccine for 1B and kind of waiting to stockpile that vaccine, but that wouldn't have been a viable option when there was no longer people in 1A that wanted it and there was 1B that needed it. So we knew that, you know, it was we weren't gonna have enough, but every dose we had, we knew we had to push out. And it demonstrates that we have the infrastructure to push it out so that we can get more.
All right. Okay, I think and I'm going to let Supervisor Pancrasi because she's been raising her hand for a while, but I think that we're going to come around and around and around and get back to almost the same thing. So, you know, I'm going to let every one of the board members, you know, if they have a comment to make one more so we can move on, because this could take us all morning just discussing the different approaches to this. Supervisor Pancrasi and
I'm timing you. So,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he wants equal time, so I gotta move on. Supervisor Pancrasi.
Question.
And Supervisor Porches with only half a minute.
Border Patrol and Customs, are they under DHS allotment or are they under our allotment?
So originally they weren't accounted for in our allotment. And so that was one of the things that we were working with our state and federal partners because they live here, they're protecting our community and they're a resource to us as far as, you know, law enforcement goes. But one of our federal partners has been working with the VA office and they're working to make sure that there's an allocation that's sent here so that they can make appointments directly with the local VA office to get vaccinated there. So that frees up vaccines for people in our community. So we're really grateful to our federal partners for making that happen and also working with the state to ensure that the corrections facility receives vaccination for those correction officers and the inmates so that frees additional vaccine. So those are things that just happened recently, but things that we were factoring into our formula. So when we opened to law enforcement, they were eligible and they were competing with everybody else for the same resource. But now that's the solution that's been recently identified, and hopefully that helps at least those two sectors.
Okay, my understanding is there's some in Phoenix at the VA that needs to get down here.
Right.
Any chance that?
Okay, Supervisor Porches?
Working on to transfer it here.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. And to make a comment, I have all these Facebook posts of how organized it is and how well run it is and how.
I was going to say that to the end, but yeah.
I'm sorry. How good it was. What a good experience they had when they went and got their injection. So. Just
We're going to beat you up a little while, and then we're going to tell you how great job you're doing.
Okay, that's the job.
Kudos to that.
I know. Supervisor Porches.
I'll just, you know, a couple of comments. No matter how you do it, how we do it, how it goes, there's always going to be someone that's not happy, and they're going to complain, no matter what.
Like the Mega Millions lottery, right?
Yeah. But I do like that idea of that using that phone or outside that someone can call, and because they put you on hold, at least you know that you're gonna someone's gonna answer. If we can use that and to register people before we get the vaccine that way, and then maybe call them back, your department will not get that phone calls and keep, you can use your employees for other things, helping out.
Yes.
Also, the partners that you have or the county has, I mean, they can help, but also making sure that they follow what the county, the health department is doing. Yeah, with the tiers that they need to be doing. And I think if we go through that, I mean, no matter what we do, some of them are going to be unhappy, but we can't get everybody happy, make everybody happy. So I think I do like that phone idea, and maybe register people. We don't know when we're going to get them, but if we get them and we have 1,000 already registered, hey, call them up, and they'll be here.
It's a queuing
They'll be
system.
there.
Yeah, queuing system.
I like that.
Yeah. I got a message, something about the Fish and Game. They had a queuing system that worked or something. I think we need to find a queuing system that works. That's it. People call in, they get an answer. They're told, look, we ran out, but on the next wave, you're going to be the first ones called. In other words, take a waiting list type situation. That way people can understand running out of something. What they probably won't be able to deal with is not getting an answer at all.
Yeah, it's the communication piece and the getting back to
Right,
them.
I took another 15 seconds. So anyway, Mr. Simmons, you get another 15 seconds.
Real quick, I think our priority needs to be communication with the public, because we have fallen flat on our faces as far as making sure they understand how to get signed up and getting through, and our message. I had one gal call me, she said, took her 10 minutes to get through, she got through in 10 minutes, at like 1:10, she said she was told the vaccines were all gone. And she's like, how in 10 minutes can they all be gone if you're only got so many phones going? And that's the frustration that the public is hearing or seeing. And I understand you guys are doing the best you can, but our priority needs to be to get the system fixed to where people can get in. I like the idea of when they call in once and get registered, and they don't have to call back in again. They're on the list, we call them and say, the vaccine is here, because a lot of times the message may not get out there that we have more vaccine. And then by the time they find out, they go to get on to sign up to get their vaccine, and it's too late, it's gone again. So we need to track, let them more, they only have to call in one time, get registered, and then we're calling them and telling them the vaccine will be here at this date and time, this is your appointment.
Yeah, I think I like that. Supervisor Lyons?
Does our county allocation that goes to do the clinics and the stores that receive it, is that part of our county allocation?
It's part of our county allocation. So the last allocation we received, we retained 2,300 doses for our clinic, and we pushed everything out.
And those people making an appointment for those clinics should go through that same process, right?
Those clinics have their individualized appointment
Okay.
process. And so there is a webpage, Find My Vaccine, at the Arizona Department of Health Services, and you can go on there and you can see which providers are administering vaccine, and that details their hours of operation and where to call to get an appointment.
Thank you.
In theory, the system should work, and I think that in theory, it does work for the people who get through. It's the people who don't get through, the people who try a lot of times, that I think we need to deal with. It's again, probably more setting up a queuing system than actually getting people appointment at the time they call, because it's going to be different. That's it, people. I want to personally thank you, because I know that your job is one of those jobs that, no matter what you do, you're going to be, somebody's going to be unhappy. I'll tell you personally, I am not unhappy about the way that the health department is doing their things, because I've seen your operation. It's a very good operation. The comments that I get is that you get in, you get out, that you get vaccinated, it's painless. You wait your 15 minutes and you're out of there, and you have your card, and that's it. And most of the comments, if not all the comments that I've gotten about the process have been great, the vaccination process. It's just the queuing part, the appointment part, that seems to be giving us a lot of trouble. And I know you guys are working on it, so I don't know what else we can tell you other than the experiences that we had with the calls we get. Anything else, Susan? No? I'd like to thank you, because anything you say will lead to more, discussion. So thank you very much for all you're doing. I know that's not just your job, it's your department. So I want to thank you and the department for handling the situation as calmly as you have so far, because I don't think I would have. So thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, hopefully. Thank you. All right, so the next item in the agenda, after we take a sort of a deep breath here and move on to the next item, is to get a presentation on solid waste operations within the Department of Public Works and provide discussion and direction to staff. We appreciate the break and the action, not necessarily for the subject,
Oh, my gosh,
but
he's actually.
just to get off the vaccine side. All right, so the floor is yours.
Or Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Josh Scott, Public Works Director. So we're here today to talk about trash. We're going to provide an overview of our solid waste operations and some of the challenges within that operation, particularly the financial ones. Those challenges do also give us an opportunity to talk about how we might be able to relieve some pressure on the general fund. So just to set this up, a group of us within Public Works has been working for the past few months on analyzing our solid waste operations. And with me today is Damaris Martinez. She's been a part of that group and those discussions, and a lot of the analysis you'll see in this presentation is what she has worked on and put together for us. She's going to walk you through kind of the operational piece in the beginning, for those of you unfamiliar with our operation, and then I'll jump in and give a little bit on the financial piece. So,
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Sorry we have to talk to you about trash again, and nonetheless, it's my pleasure to be here today to provide you with an overview of the solid waste operations, specifically our transfer sites.
You know, it couldn't be more timely. We had a lady here that was wanting to get appointed to a commission with trash. So, you know, in some ways, it is timely.
So the county offers transfer sites as a convenient location for our residents to drop off their waste at no cost. The county then transports the waste and pays for its disposal at the landfill. We have 4 different locations, our primary one being North Gila here in Yuma, and we have the 3 locations in East County, Welton, Tacna, and Dayton. We run the waste tire facility alongside the North Gila site, and those 5 sites are staffed by the same 6 attendants.
Now, before you move on, you know, it's obvious to me that a lot of these transfer sites are all in the eastern portion of the county. Obviously, mostly unincorporated areas that are far away from trash collection. But if you listen to the lady, you know, that was here earlier, that problem of trash, you know, it's everywhere. And it's probably more in those areas next to unincorporated areas where people, you know, just don't find anywhere to take their trash, so they just dispose it. Now, I know that's not the only problem, but I certainly would like to make a point right now that we need to start looking at a transfer site in South County so that we can actually get people closer to those transfer sites. Some people, and people who live in unincorporated areas, you know, sometimes the difficulty is the distance. So getting people closer to a transfer site should be one of those things that I should have waited till the end of the presentation, but I just, you know, this morning I seem to be forgetting more things that I remember, so.
It's the rain.
Yeah, it's the rain, it shrunk my head again, but, right.
These are the following services that the county offers residents at no cost. The bulk of the waste besides our household trash is the green waste, like the tree cuttings and trimmings, the plant cuttings, appliances, which is our white waste, and rock and concrete. An analysis of the last 10 years projects that the transfer site will receive over 71,000 customers at the North Gila site alone. And the county will transport and pay for over 18 million pounds of waste this fiscal year. So on the following slides, I'll go ahead and briefly walk you through the services that we offer at the transfer site before I turn it over to Josh to do an overview of the financial. This is our North Gila site. We have 5 to 6 of these bins for our customers to drive up to and dispose of their waste. On a given weekend, we do fill about 10 to 12 of these bins. This is our green waste pile. As you can see, it builds up pretty quickly. We do one of 2 things with it. We either take it to the landfill or we break it down with our wood chipper. A part of the issue that we run into is being able to vet out which residents are, which waste is actually residential versus commercial, landscaping, or contractor. We also struggle to bring the pile down, keep it down to a minimum when our aging equipment like our wood chipper is down. But we did just recently get an air burner, which will help mitigate the size of this pile in the near future. These are our white goods, our appliances. This is about 1 day's worth. We're seeing an upward trend in appliances that we receive each year. And due to the size of these appliances, handling and transporting them often creates a strain on our limited staffing as well as our site capacity. We are working with local companies, however, to have them recycled instead of taking them to the landfill. And these local recyclers are also open to the public, and they provide payment for recycled appliances to them as well. Our transfer site also disposes of batteries. We formed a partnership with a company called Battery Systems. They pick up and dispose of these batteries. This is also a company that, like the appliances, customers or residents can take their batteries to and receive payment or store credit at certain locations. This is our electronics bin. It takes about 6 months to get this bin to fill up. We have partnered with a company called Achieve. They refurbish those electronics that are salvageable, and the rest do go to the landfill. This is our rock pile. It's about 3 weeks worth of rock. Anything from rock, concrete, brick, decorative tile goes in there. Like the green waste, our challenge here is vetting out the commercial waste from the residential waste. And to avoid the landfill costs, we have been hauling it up the road past the waste tire site over the last 10 years. And this is a picture of the buildup, if you can see up on the right-hand side. And just for scale size, that truck on the left side is actually one of our largest loaders. So you can see the depth and the width of that pile. And lastly, this is our waste tire site. Each one of these cells is about 150 feet long. We run this in conjunction with the North Gila site, and that same staffing that we use for the other sites is used for the waste tire site as well. And last year alone, this facility received 140,000 tires. We did reach out to other counties in Arizona to find out about their solid waste operations, and we researched their waste restrictions, their fee structures, their staffing, their hours of operation, and we did find that Yuma County has minimal restrictions in the waste that is accepted. And of the counties that we contacted, Yuma County is also the only county that offers all of the aforementioned services at no cost. And it's also the only county that operates 7 days a week. So now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Josh to provide you with the financial overview of the solid waste operation.
I think I know where this is going, but I'm going to wait till the
A big buildup here.
Yeah.
So here's a look at our budget and expenditures over the last few fiscal years. The blue line represents our appropriated budget, and the bar graph is our actual expenditures. So you can see the biggest portion of our expenditures is in the supplies and services and personnel services, our operational piece. We've had minimal increases to the personnel side of things, but that supplies and services has really grown, and that's primarily due to the cost of landfilling all of this waste. So the last 2 years particularly, we've been operating in the red, so it's not a rosy picture. And the disposal of all that waste that Damaris mentioned, with the exception of waste tires, is all funded via the general fund. There's no other money that goes into that operation other than a little bit from the state to manage our waste tires. And some reasons we're operating in the red. We've really increased our popularity out there, particularly at North Gila. You can see last fiscal year we had about 69,000 cars come through. As Damaris mentioned, we're on pace to be over 70,000 this year. And based on that trend, we project that over the next 10 years, we'll be looking at over 100,000 cars using that site. More customers leads to more trash. So this trend line actually is just a tick above the customer counts. That's something else we've seen analyzing the data, is that The trash per customer has actually increased over time. They're bringing us more trash, not just more customers. And you can see here, we did about 17 million pounds last year, and we'll be up to almost 30 million pounds by FY 3031. Of course, that translates into disposal costs. So this last fiscal year, we spent about $220,000 at the landfill just from the North Gila site alone. Most of that waste ends up in the South County landfill, and it costs the county about $25 a ton to dispose of it there. And that's exclusive of our handling and hauling. We got to still get it there. So you'll see over the next 10 years, that's projected to more than double. We do bid out our landfill services about once every 4 years, and that's why you kind of see the little jumps in there. And every time we put it out for bid, those costs do go up. So we've accounted for that in that projection. Some other reasons we're in the red are white goods, the appliances that Damaris mentioned. We've seen a big uptick in that. We've seen a pretty healthy increase in the amount of green waste that's ending up out at our site. I already mentioned the landfill fees. This last fiscal year, we had to replace some aging equipment to the tune of about $87,000. We split that with our waste tire operation, so that operation kicked in some funding there. It does cost us about $50,000 a year to keep all of our equipment running and our trucks on the road. And we've been in a position where, especially with only having 6 solid waste technicians and having to split them up amongst the sites, where if employees get into a situation where they've got FMLA or they need, COVID's been the latest, prolonged period of time off, we really have no option other than to supplement with somebody from our highway side. And when that happens, general fund ends up reimbursing the HERF account for those expenses. We have made some operational changes along the way over the last several years to try and adjust. You know, it's had some impact. Again, the biggest thing is our landfill costs, but we've moved our staff to a 5/8 schedule versus a 4/10. This allows us to have a couple of days during the week where we have all hands on deck and we're able to get caught up on things like appliances and green waste. For those of you that don't know, the North Gila site was built without any power run to it, so it's been operating that way for, you know, decades. We are just finishing a project with APS to put permanent power out there, so that'll help with employee comfort, but also opens up some options in how we operate that site. We've got a pilot program we're working on with SA Recycling that we're going to kick off next month, where they'll do some of the hauling of those white goods for us to try and reduce our handling costs and getting it to the recycler. In some situations where we do get backed up, particularly on the weekends, Damaris mentioned we might fill 10 of those bins. You know, on a busy Saturday, we could have close to 500 customers and have, you know, a dozen bins full. We use C&D via cooperative contract that the city of Yuma has with them to supplement our hauling. We have partnered with battery systems here in town to again do the hauling on the batteries. And we've also worked with Sunset Nursery, so when we do our chipping, we do haul them some of that for them to recycle into mulch for their operation. They do have limited capacity, so they can't take everything, but it keeps at least some of it out of the landfill. So what's in store for North Gila? Again, we're going to ramp up over the next 10 years. The current site is layout and setup has been the same for close to 20 years now. There's been virtually no changes out there. So we're going to have to do something to accommodate the growth. So we're going to have to add capacity out there. Damaris mentioned that air burner. That will really help us put a bigger dent in that green waste pile. Like I mentioned, we partner with the nursery on our green waste. We can possibly expand that into providing some green waste for use in mulch for parks and other landscape needs. So we're exploring that. We've been talking with DPE here locally about having them come out and crush that big rock pile that Emery showed you. And they would turn that into material to be used in road construction.
Oh, that would be wonderful, good.
Probably won't be a windfall for the county, but at least get it out of there.
Mhm.
And then waste diversion. So Damaris mentioned with white goods particularly, there are opportunities within the community for residents to go directly to a recycler. I think when we checked, depending on what it was, you might get like $5 or $8 for a refrigerator or something like that, but trying to divert that waste stream and get it back into the community versus showing up at our land. Or our
We can't do that?
What's that?
We can't haul it to a recycler and do that?
We do.
Oh, good.
But there's a cost associated with filling up those bins and hauling it into town and.
Okay.
And, you know,
It doesn't offset the, yeah.
no, so we
Mr.
might
Chairman?
pay a couple $100 for a whole bin full
Hold
of.
on.
Okay,
Okay, hold on.
got it.
I
Supervisor,
just had a real quick question on that. On our website, to these other places that take like the white appliances and stuff, do we have a site on our website on the, you know, that they can click onto to see where to take it?
So we don't currently, we need to work with those recyclers, make sure they're okay with us linking to their site. We are working on an education campaign though. We have flyers to hand out at the transfer sites that do list those kinds of opportunities where they might be able to go and dispose of some of these things. There's green waste handlers in town. Now they charge a fee, whereas we don't, but there's other opportunities within the community to accept some of these wastes. To address that budget shortfall that we're seeing, basically we've got three options here. We can look at pulling back on the services we offer. Now by statute, we're only obligated to accept generally household waste in areas within our jurisdiction. So that doesn't necessarily extend to green waste, construction debris, some of these other things that we do accept. That won't totally offset the shortfall we have because landfill costs are anticipated to continue to increase and the tonnage we see is expected to go up as well. We can look at kind of keeping things status quo, but that'll require an injection of additional general fund money. There's all kinds of pressures on the general fund, as you're well aware, and this would just be an additional one. The third option, and I know it's not a popular one, is to look at a fee structure that we could put in place out there to make the operation more sustainable and solvent, and that would also support the future expansion needs and equipment replacement and things like that. The advantage to that would be it wouldn't be an operation that's subsidized by all taxpayers. It would just be focused on those that use the facilities and the site. I'll leave it on this slide again, just as a reminder. We are the only county out there with a 7-day-a-week operation that does not charge. Fee structures vary from county to county, anywhere from $2 a trash bag up to $130 for a trailer load. Some counties charge for green waste at the same rate. Some have a reduced rate for green waste services. Appliances, those vary as well, between $5 and $25, depending on the county you're in. So with that, we'd like to get your feedback and try and answer any questions you might have.
all right, hold on. Before, I know you want to talk, Mr. Lyons, Supervisor Lyons, but before we go on, I should have waited until the end of the presentation to suggest we put another one out in South County. I just want to say that before we begin.
Mr. Chairman, if we were to put a fee structure in place, that might be a more viable option versus.
Yeah, well, that is an issue that I think what was initially led us to set up a station, a transfer station. The fact is that we find ourselves between the situation where people will dump their stuff in the desert before they pay any fee. And we ended up with a bunch of problems trying to set up a system to stop people from throwing junk out in the desert. So this transfer situation was a way to deal with that at the time. I don't think we were expecting it to become a way of life, that where people can just simply drive and dump their stuff. I think that eventually, I don't need Russ McLeod to tell me that the fact is all taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing a situation like this. A situation like this is where, again, we go back to the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, the intentions are good, but it's getting to a point now that it's starting to cost a sizable amount of money to maintain this service. That again, although I tend to agree that government should serve a purpose, that purpose shouldn't be to tax people for other people's, to pay for other people's needs. So I'm a little reluctant to go back to in other words, to have somebody come over and complain that there's all kinds of garbage thrown all over the place, and then start limiting the access to these transfer sites. Sort of works against each other, but we do understand, at least I do understand, that this is not a sustainable process. I mean, over time, this will become something that people expect that will be a substantial expense to the county taxpayers. So I do think that this is the time before it gets to that point where we start looking at some of the options. They're painful options, but they're needed options. That we need to do this, otherwise the problem is going to get bigger. This is a relatively small problem, but it will be a much larger problem if we ignore it. Supervisor Lyons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that we shouldn't be subsidizing, everybody's cleanup, and I have seen some commercial vehicles or, landscaping companies going out to do that. We deposit all of our trash at the commercial, and we pay those commercial rates. I've got a concern about the amount of trash that's accumulated throughout the county. My family and I, over the last couple of months, have actually gone out, and every time we go to the desert, we bring back a truckload. I'm concerned about the excessive waste that we see throughout the county as we're driving around. And I feel like, if some fee structure was put into place, that it would increase that. And again, at the same time, we shouldn't be subsidizing other people's cleanup or commercial activities. Is there a way maybe to take 2 or 3 months, or maybe you already have the averages of looking at a way to mitigate by refusing to accept, for example, the white waste or the batteries and directing them to another place so that doesn't become the county's burden? And to slowly kind of gradually phase those things out by saying you need to go here?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Lyons, we've got an idea. We don't have a lot of historical data on the white goods or the green waste necessarily. We don't have a scale out there to measure green waste necessarily down to the pound. White goods, we have recycling tickets, but that kind of gives us a general idea. Recycling amounts go up and down so rapidly that it's hard to really put a number to. But the biggest concern I have is when we start turning people away, no matter what it is they've got in the back of their truck, it's going to end up.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
so the other piece is we see a lot of mixed loads out there, with the exception of green waste. So it's kind of rare that somebody comes with just a refrigerator. If you usually got a refrigerator and some bags of trash, or a refrigerator and a pile of tree trimmings or something like that. So it makes it harder to say, well, you can take that out of your truck, but you got to leave that in. But we can, those are definitely steps we can look at.
My suggestion is more of a measured response instead of just implementing a fee right off the bat, just looking at ways to maybe help people adapt.
Yeah, in other words, start with a change that people can adapt to before we go into a situation with fees. That's what the suggestion is in this side. Now, Supervisor Porches had his hand up, and then Supervisor Simmons had his hand up, and you always have your hand up, but this time you were a little late. They beat you to it.
They
So
beat me. Oh my gosh.
All right, Supervisor Porches.
A couple of comments. Obviously, you kind of mentioned that with the green waste, there is some commercial. All those landscapers, they'll take advantage. Whatever they don't have to pay, they'll go and take it. Even if they drive from Somerton or San Luis, they'll go all the way there and save some money. I've seen it, and I know they do that. I think paying more attention to the commercials and charging them to the contractors, I think it'll at least alleviate some of the green. But also the tires, well, no, not the tires, the whites. In Somerton, when there's annual cleanup and people put out their trash or whatever they would anything, big items like refrigerators, sofas, or beds, and then put them outside. In 1 week, you see people driving around, and I know they're from Mexico. They'll pick up all the refrigerators or a washer, or you won't see any of that. I don't know if but they recycle them. They recycle them.
I know.
I mean, it's something that it's not that they're taking trash. They recycle them. They come and get them. That's an option, and letting some people go in there and making sure that they're gonna take it, not to go dump it somewhere else. That's one part of getting rid of the whites.
White trash.
The rocks. I know a lot of the contractors that do cleanups or they get all the concrete and they got permission from the irrigation district, and they put it out on they'll throw it out on the drainage canals. So that's a possibility to look at, maybe, or turning them down or sending them somewhere else, or maybe it'd be easier to go take it there. I know it'd still be some work, but. And I think the other option is we got to start charging at least half of what the commercial landfill charges, because I can see, it eventually will be that red that we saw, it'll be a lot more in the next 10 years. And I will say that this last year, you probably saw an increase because, I'm still not done with the honey-do list since March of last year. And I've been to the landfill by South County like 3 times, and I still got more. But I know a lot, this last year, people had a lot of time in their hand. They did a lot of, construction in their homes or fix up things, and they threw a lot of things. So maybe that, I'm pretty sure that's part of it. But there's still a trend that it's going to go up every year, and we're paying for other people that, every taxpayer is paying for that. So, just some options. But I do think, I know for a truck, at least my size of a truck, the commercial landfill charges about $15. But they'll ask you if you got tires or something, batteries. That'd be separate. They don't let you just take them and dump them. But just greens or any other trash, it's $15 a truck. So
yeah, I think the whole idea is that there's a point where we first have to try to get rid of what we can, and second, look at how we implement the fee structure that doesn't drive people away, but makes people understand. This is a lot cheaper than you would get, and a lot more convenient, which we'll get to it at the end. Supervisor Simmons?
I agree with everything's being said. We need to look at ways we can make it pay for itself, but I don't think charging the public per se is going to be a smart idea, for the simple fact you drive around this county and you see the trash that's out there from people dumping, just because, one, it may not be close. Like you said, South County doesn't have something to go to, but it's ridiculous the amount of trash that's thrown out there in the desert. You look at when COVID first hit earlier in the year, we'd closed down the East County transfer site. It was very minimal hours, and you saw what happened there. Around the transfer site became the biggest dump itself.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Simmons, so in speaking with the sheriff's office, there was a slight rise in the number of illegal dumping cases that were investigated this fiscal year, but it wasn't like off the charts. Now, I understand, we did have COVID, and in the beginning we did try and reduce hours, and that did lead to some additional dumping. We tried to assist the districts as best we could. We patrolled the canals, and we have a rear loader trash truck we took with us to load up when we found it.
I think
it's natural
the word of caution is what you're saying.
It's natural to assume that with a fee, we'll see an increase in illegal dumping. One of the counties we talked to, they've been hesitant to raise their fees the last couple of years just because of that fact. I know how big of a problem it would be, I don't know.
Well,
I think you're gonna find the ones that are dumping in the desert now are probably gonna continue to do it. If they're doing it now while it's free, it's hard to.
Well, like I said, it concerns me that we're gonna add to the problem if we start charging. And, we need to come up with other ways, maybe of finding revenue, like I said, the green waste or, whatever.
The tires,
The
recycled tires,
But
recycled batteries,
I
whatever.
don't think charging is gonna be the answer. I think it's gonna cause more of a problem.
And that's why I'm presenting options. So
Yeah.
one of
No,
the
I think-
things that's happened, at least in my research with our solid waste operation, is it's grown beyond the intent.
Yeah.
So for whatever
And
reason,
it
we've
lends itself
started
to abuse a little
accepting
bit.
virtually
Yeah, a
anything
little
and
bit.
everything. As long as it's not hazardous and glowing, we'll take it. So that's why I'm saying an option might be to scale back on the services to more of just a household trash type.
Well, the problem is going to be that the type of items that people dispose of in the desert are not normally bags of trash. They're refrigerators, old cars, and, bag tires and stuff. They're exactly the type of thing
Mattress.
mattresses. They're exactly the type of thing that are an eyesore, no matter where you take them to. So it's going to be a little difficult balancing act there. Lynn, Supervisor Pankerson?
Josh, I have a question. Is there any way you can work with some organizations or some businesses that would be willing to go out and take them off our hands? Instead of us having to pay to haul them to their locations, is there any way they would come out and take them off our hands? Or, do you know what I'm saying? So that it would cost less, we could cut down on our costs by allowing them to go out to those sites and picking all that stuff up and using it at no fees.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Pancrezi, we've done that with SA Recycling for the white goods. We're going to kick off a pilot program next month to have them do just that. Now, we'll see a much smaller return on, the amount of money we get from recyclables, but it will definitely cut down on costs. We partner with that battery systems here in town where we just collect the batteries. We don't load them up. We don't handle them beyond just, setting them aside there. So that reduces that cost. But as you saw in the graph, our biggest expense is the landfill cost, and that's our household waste and part of our green waste. So the appliances and the batteries, things like that, those are small impacts to the overall operation that we've explored and we're addressing. But when you fill up 10 bins out there on a Saturday with bags of trash and palm fronds.
Yeah, people are just using it as a way to get rid of the trash, which is maybe what we intended to initially, but it's now getting to be a large enough expense for the county to start looking at other ways to either reduce it or charge a fee for it. I mean, we're going to get to it. Supervisor Lyons?
Home improvements during COVID are at an all-time high, according to, all of the stores around town, especially with receipts up significantly. So do you feel like there is an uptick that corresponds directly to that?
Yeah, I think we had, prior to us kind of scaling back in the beginning of this, we had the busiest March and April.
People were off work. They were off work. They had the opportunity, and they had a little stimulus check, so they were able to.
Lots of drywall,
That's
lots
right.
of toilets,
That's
lots
right.
of tile.
Okay.
My list started in March.
All right, well, let me sort of, kind of sum it up, because we do have a lot of ideas. I think that my message, or what I gather from the discussion here, Scott, is that what I like to see is I like to see every effort that can be made to reduce the amount by having outside vendors or whatever, suppliers or something, either bid on this, on the materials if they want to take it, or simply just take it from us, so we don't have to pay for the disposal fee. But I still believe that a small fee per car, for example, per vehicle, $1 or $2 per vehicle, would help us, and it wouldn't be such an onerous thing that people would. I mean, what I'm concerned with is that we'll get to a situation where we'll be forced to charge a fee, and then the fee is going to be high, and then people are going to move away from doing this. What I like to see is I like to be able to prove to people that we've done everything possible to reduce the cost to the county taxpayers, and then get to a point where we charge a $1 or a $2 fee per vehicle. We don't really want to get into a lot of the inspection of what it's in the vehicle, but if we have a way to monitor vehicles coming in, then we have a way to collect the fee. I just don't want that collection of the fee to be, the cost to be higher than actually, in terms of the time it takes the staff, the way we collect the fee, those kind of things. I think that we've got a little bit of time, maybe between now and the next fiscal year, to come up with a plan to develop some revenue sources that will help offset the cost, the increased cost. And I think that we cannot get away from the fact that at this particular point in time, we understand the need for the transfer sites, but we also understand the need to have some sort of a user fee that pays for that operation that doesn't come from every taxpayer. And we need to take into account that whatever the fee is, it's got to be a convenience fee, not necessarily a fee that covers the cost, but something that allows us to stop that trend and start going the other way. And something that tells people, look, we don't want you to go out and dump stuff in the field. I mean, we don't want you to throw out a refrigerator around the county because you don't want to pay a $1 or $2 fee. We need to make it so it's a little inconvenience, but it's not enough to drive them away. But it's enough to tell. I think that when we go back to the taxpayers and we say, look, we like to provide these services. No other county does it the way Yuma County does it, but it's getting to a point now that we will be asking you to contribute. You're the one bringing in this stuff. Please contribute a small fee to help us offset. Otherwise, there's going to be a fee, and we're going to be driving you away. So that balance is, I think, what I'd like to see in the next presentation, which is when you come back and say, okay, we have done this, done that, and done this. We still see that trend remaining upwards, and we need to, set up. Because I think the next discussion is going to be a little tougher, because right now you just brought a presentation. The next one is to set either a fee or a process to reduce the cost. And I think that one is where we start talking about whether doing that really goes against the grain of what we're trying to do, which is to make it easier for people to dispose of their disposables, waste, in an organized manner instead of out in the desert. That's going to have to be combined. Whatever we brought in is going to have to be combined with the sheriff's office and the enforcement side, so that if we have an impact that is negative, we'll know right away, and we'll be able to, kind of adjust to it. Because I think everything takes time for people to adapt to. I mean, at some particular point, we were talking about parks and recreation, last month, and we were talking about how people get used to stuff, and then they hear the term parks, and right now when people hear the term transfer site, they're thinking free dumping, and that's what they're thinking. And it's not tough because it's true. But if we say inconvenience a little bit, you pay a fee, but we are able to tell our taxpayers, hey, look, what happens in East County is fine. It's still Yuma County, but you don't have it in South County, you don't have it in other places, and you're paying it with taxpayer fees, fully paying it with taxpayer fees. That can be a problem. But we're not looking at it as simply a convenient situation. We're looking at a situation that gives us an opportunity to avoid a bigger problem, which is dumping in the desert. So I think we need to find that common ground, and I think we have. As I listen to the discussion, I think none of us are totally adverse to a fee. It's just that we think that may go against what the intent of the transfer sites were. But we're all trying to figure out a way to make money out of the waste that you're collecting. I'm thinking tires and the way that tires are getting recycled now to provide asphalt or, things like that. But I know that sometimes the solution is more expensive than the actual problem. When you have to, tires are a prime example, because to me, taking on a tire is taking on a responsibility. Now you have to dispose of the tire, but you're not charging anything to take the tire. Now you go to a tire shop and get a tire exchange, they'll charge you a disposal fee.
$3. Mr. Chairman, we do get money from the state to handle waste tires, so it's not enough to cover our operation, but we do get some money.
But the
biggest expense is hauling those tires to a recycler.
That's right.
So,
That's the point. The point is, if what you're getting is less than what you're paying, you're still in the hole. I mean, that's not the way I wanted to say it, but yeah, you're still running a deficit. And what we're looking at right now is that deficit is getting bigger and bigger. And before the problem gets big enough, or it gets so big that we can't avoid it, let's just start working on mitigation strategies. Okay, how do we start reducing that? I like the concept that Supervisor Simmons, thinks of, which is, look, we don't want to drive people to what they used to do in the old times, which is dump stuff out in the desert. just because we want to solve a problem that may not be as big as having all this stuff out dump in the desert and we have to send someone to pick it up. So, but again, I think that those are the tough decisions that eventually you make. But I tend to agree with the philosophy that Supervisor Porsche has brought to the board, that some of these problems were small problems back at the time they came up, and then we didn't do anything about them, so they became big problems that we got to deal with now. So this is one of those situations where I think we're in time. We had a little bit of time to come up with mitigating solutions plus maybe a small fee so that we can prove to our taxpayers that we're not simply just giving the service away and making them pay for it, but we're looking for ways to minimize the impact. I think investing $500,000 and making sure that people in East County have a way to dispose of their garbage is probably worth it. But getting it to $1 million, that's going to be tough to defend in the future. So thank you for bringing this problem out early enough so that we can start discussing some solutions that will help you and help the county deal with it.
Mr. Chairman, can I just address that real quick?
Sure.
I'm not suggesting we transfer to a total fee for service at this point.
No,
I think that would, it wouldn't pass the reasonableness test, I don't think. But I think a small fee or kind of ease into it over time.
We'll call it a convenience fee.
Yeah, and I think in our research, if memory serves me right, there was only one county out there that their solid waste operation is totally an enterprise type fund and pays for itself. Most do supplement with general fund money to keep costs down so that they don't drive those customers away or have them dump out in the desert or in the wilderness.
All right. We're not going to waste any more time. So Supervisor Lyons, you get the last word.
What is the cost of a crusher to recycle the hard waste, the rock?
The cost of what?
The cost of the rock or the hard waste, what would the cost for a crusher be?
So we haven't explored that other than we used to have some gravel plant equipment, but it wasn't set up because there's some rebar and things in that concrete that would just tear our stuff up. So when we talked with DPE, they do have the equipment to handle that. So rather than buy it, our initial discussions have been if they'll set up, crush it, and haul it away, we won't charge them anything for it, and there'll be no money exchanged. We have in the past, it's probably been about 10 years, but we have partnered with water users, as Supervisor Porteous mentioned, to dump on their drains. Now, we started another discussion with them about 1.5 years ago, and they're willing to take it, maybe not all of it because it is so much at this point, but we've got to haul it, and that's where,
that's what the cost is
rock
going to
into
come.
dump trucks and taking it across town or down into South County gets to be pretty expensive.
All right, Scott, I'm going to give Supervisor Porteous because he's been banging on the side here. I know the 15 seconds, so.
Just next time you come back and you present another presentation to us, can you bring the cost, like the commercial landfill, what do they charge? And then maybe also include some of the counties in Arizona?
A table with what they're
Yeah.
charging? Oh,
All right.
absolutely,
All right.
absolutely. We can break that down.
All right.
So, yeah, we really only have 2 commercial options in town. One is South County landfill. You've already mentioned their fee. The other is Republic has a transfer site off of 32nd Street and 3.5E. Now, if city residents get a break, but county residents would not in using that facility, and their minimum charge, I think, was, don't quote me, but I think it was $36, somewhere in that neighborhood for residents.
Just a quick question. Do we do anything with Copper Mountain at East?
So our waste from East County does go to Copper Mountain.
Okay.
However, Copper Mountain is not open to residential. They only take commercial waste at that point, so they consider us a commercial vendor.
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much. This is listed as a sort of a presentation. I think the next time we hear or, a presentation is going to be, guys need to make a decision kind of thing. Right now, it was just a presentation. Thank you, Scott, for bringing this problem up. And I don't know if we should thank you for bringing the problem up, but anyway, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the presentation. At least it sets up the table for a discussion for a meaningful response to the problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we'll be back.
All right, the next item, which I'm trying to move through now, is it's appointments to the design review team and fairgrounds relocation committee. I haven't really had a chance to talk to the rest of the board members about those appointments. One of them was the fair relocation, I think, and I think Supervisor Simmons, this is the only one that somebody's asked me to be on. And the members were Lynn and Supervisor McLeod. So in this particular, Supervisor Lyons has replaced Supervisor McLeod, but I think that you've been working on it for a while. So, or at least familiar with what's going on, and I know.
I've been participating in
He's
that.
been on he's been to all the
Right,
meetings
so,
too.
it's gonna be between you two guys, whatever you guys.
You've been to, go ahead and.
Yeah, I've been on all of those.
All right, so we're going to then go and make the appointment for Mr. Lyons and Lynn to be on that committee. Lynn will bring the time that she spent as a supervisor, and you will bring the time you've spent as a member of that into that. So I will appoint you two to serve in that particular committee.
We've
Now,
been
the
going
other
to the
one,
meetings all along.
that's right. The other one is the supervisor auditorium and what's it called? The review team, the design review team. And that again had Supervisor McLeod in it and Lynn. And I think to be fair, I'm gonna split that up between Supervisor Porches and Supervisor Simmons. That way everybody gets a chance to participate. And I know Lynn has been heavily involved in that design review team, but I think she's carried it as far as it is right now. And she is an extremely busy person. And if I gave her an appointment on every, if I gave her an appointment on every committee, she would serve in every committee. So this time I'm going to appoint 2 supervisors to serve in the fairground committee and 2 supervisors to serve on the design review committee that I think balance it out. Okay? So that's it. Those are my appointments, and we move on to the next item. See, it's easy when you let me just make the decision. The next items are the planning and zoning agenda. This is where full legal descriptions of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. I'm going to open the expedited rezoning calendar, which means that these items will be open as a group for public hearing and acted upon by one motion to adopt the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by a board member for separate consideration. That item will be discussed and acted upon separately, following actions on the expedited item. There's only one expedited item, right? So unless somebody wants to open it up, I'll suggest that we take it in as expedited, conduct a public hearing, because we do have to, and then make a decision fairly quick on it. That's what expedited means. So does anybody in the board want to open it up to full hearing? If not, then I'll open it up as an expedited item, and I'll ask, first of all, I'll read what it is. It's Ayana Engel, agent for Hector Ortiz, requests a special use permit of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow a site-built home as an accessory dwelling unit on a 3.22 gross acres in size, zone suburban ranch, 2-acre minimum on assessor's parcel number 71923-041, located at 12668 South Drysdale, Yuma, Arizona. Now, would you like to briefly make a presentation before I open it to the public hearing? It's pretty simple to me, but.
It's just a request for an accessory dwelling unit on that property.
Yeah,
There's
which is almost 4 acres in size.
Yes. It's about 3.22 acres. Everything is surrounded by a mixture of residential uses and a few commercials on the northwest side. Also, the dwellings are a mixture of site-built and manufactured homes. And this is the site plan that was provided by the applicant. There's an existing house site built on the east side, and they plan locating the proposed accessible unit on the western side of it. Access will be via Drysdale Lane, and the applicant agrees with the conditions. This is an aerial view.
It's a large site.
Yeah, an existing condition of the area.
Where's Drysdale Lane? You can't even see it. It's
Out
the
front.
dirt one?
It's on the.
It's right in the.
Oh, it's at the back one. There
Yes,
you
it's
go.
right
Okay.
On the right side of the picture.
Okay.
Yes, it's an easement. It's a private easement for all.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this to the public if there's any comments, and then I'll bring it back to the board for their decision. I think all of us can see that it's a large enough site, and that the accessory dwelling would have almost fit because it's a 4-acre site, close to a 4-acre site. So let's just move on. I'll open the public hearing section of this to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address the board on this particular item? If not, I'll move it back to the board for their decision. I'm closing the public hearing, returning it to the board. I'd entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
Motion to approve as presented.
Is there a
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the item as presented. Any discussion? No discussion on this motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed also state aye. No? Well, that's what it is, right? We'll say no then, okay? So we're gonna go to the regular public hearing items on the planning and zoning agenda. And then this one, the staff will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. The item number one, it's a minor amendment from minor amendment case number 20-06 from Dahl Robbins and Associates, agent for Crystal Rose Farms LLC, with a request to change the land use designation of a parcel 10 acres, gross acres in size, from agricultural rural presentation to agricultural rural development. Assessors parcel 195-03010, located in the vicinity of County 10th Street and Avenue E in Yuma, Arizona. There is going to be a PowerPoint presentation by the planning staff.
You want to open number 2 as well?
Oh, yeah. Is this related, right? Zoning case number 2019 is the actual, this rezoning, so this will be the same situation. Dahl and Robbins and Associates, agent for Crystal Rose Farms LLC, requests the rezoning of a parcel 10 acres, 10 gross acres in size from rural area 40-acre minimum to rural area 5-acre minimum, and assessors parcel 195-03-010, located in the vicinity of County 10th Street and Avenue E, Yuma, Arizona. And the reason for that is that they're both related, and if the minor amendment does not pass, then the zoning matter probably doesn't happen. So if we get through the first, the amendment to the minor amendment, then we'll discuss the rezoning pretty much next to it. And then it's the same basic matter for discussion. So I'll open it now for the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, case 20-06. The intent of this amendment is to accommodate for the rezoning of the subject parcel from RA40 to RA5. Subject parcel is parcel number 10, crosshatched to the center of this map. The surrounding land uses agricultural rural preservation. The property is bounded on the north by County 10th Street. This is an aerial view showing the subject parcel highlighted in yellow. There are some residential uses on the east, and the rest is in farm agricultural uses. This is a view looking south of the subject parcel from County 10. Staff did not receive any comments in support or opposition. The Planning Commission recommends approval of minor amendment case 20-06. However, staff does not concur with that recommendation, recommends denial based on the following. The amendment is not consistent with the existing character of the Yuma Valley planning area. The amendment is not considered an overall improvement to the plan and is solely for the good or benefit of this particular owner. The amendment does not address an oversight inconsistency or other land use related inequity. And with that, this is the portion of this presentation for the minor amendments. I will continue now with the rezoning case presentation, which is to rezone the parcel, which is 10 gross acres in size from RA40 to RA5. And the intent is to create 2 parcels of 5 acres in size for residential development. This is the zoning map. The parcel is zoned rural area 40-acre minimum, and the surrounding uses zoning are RA40. Access to the properties via along County 10th Street on the north, which is a paved road. This is a site plan provided by the applicant, how it's planned to split the parcel into 2 houses, east and west. This is a view looking east from County 10th Street, looking north from subject property. Again, no comments in support or opposition. The Planning Commission recommends approval. Planning staff does not concur with our recommendation. However, if the board approves this request, the Planning Commission recommends attaching the following performance condition. Within 60 days of board's approval, the owner agent shall provide an ARS 12-1134 waiver and record an agricultural disclosure statement, an infrastructure disclosure statement, and also record a schedule for development disclosure statement, and the following schedule for development. Within 1 year of board's approval, the property shall be split in accordance with the site plan submitted by the applicant by means of land division permit pursuant to section 507 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. Also, number 2, All that shall be provided with means of irrigation and access to irrigation water. Prior to development of any existing parcel, the owners or applicant shall submit a letter from the irrigation district to the DDS confirming that through development services, confirming that satisfactory irrigation system is in place and is installed, and the village lots will have access to irrigation water. Chairman, this concludes this presentation. Staff is ready for questions.
All right, before I turn it into a public hearing, Supervisor Pankers, you had a question?
Yes. What can be built on agricultural development?
As far as all related, ag-related, structures like barns. For instance, you can have a residence, site built or manufactured home, barns. You can have headquarters for farm offices, and pretty much
Anything related to farming,
to agriculture use.
but only one is what boils down to. This is calling for us to split that in two.
Right.
So right now it's one for every 40 acres, and this would.
That is correct. One residence. You can have many structures, but one residence per parcel.
Got it.
But if you have to have different structures like barns and warehouses for ag, yeah, you can have many.
Has to be ag-related.
So the bottom line is we have a 10-acre parcel that is basically zoned 40 acres agriculture, and they want to turn it into a 2 5-acre parcels. So we need to change both. We need to have the minor amendment to change the land use and a rezoning case to change the zoning so that it allows for 2 structures instead of just 1 in that area.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
And I before we go into a public hearing, I suppose that the objection that the staff has is because they simply cannot simply approve a situation where it's not really what agricultural preservation is about.
Correct,
Agricultural preservation would have been to try to keep everything in agriculture, and this is not saying that it's not going to be in agriculture, it's simply saying there's 2 parcels instead of 1.
Correct,
Right?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, well, any other questions, Supervisor Pancrasi, before I move it into?
Thank you.
Okay, let me open this to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address the board on this particular item? Please, step forward.
Good morning. I am Christina Gwen Pericone, and I am the agent for Crystal Rose Farms. I also am I'm the owner of parcel 11, and I live in that home. That home is the original home of my grandparents, so Rosemary and Howard Gwen. It also happens to be the original site of the Sunland Dairy, which is about 125 to 50 years old now. It's still standing, and around that our house was built originally, and then now we have an arena with about 15 roping stairs and probably 10 horses. So you can kind of start to see that in terms of agricultural preservation, that's happening, but in terms of coexistence with farmland, we're trying to increase the buffer here between animals and property that's being farmed for food safety. So essentially what we're looking to do is going to do that. So all of our neighbors are really happy about what we're looking to do because we're actually extending that buffer zone for food safety, what we're looking to do. Now, because I'm a little nervous, I'm just going to go ahead and read my narrative to you. So the subject parcel was originally a 20-acre parcel altogether that was owned and built upon by my grandparents in the 1940s. The original 20-acre parcel was comprised of 195-003-011 and 195-03010. My grandparents sold to the Oden family in the 1970s, and the Odens owned the property until 2005, when my husband and I bought it. And during the time the Odens owned that property, they picked up several other agricultural parcels that surrounded it. So by and large, there are our primary neighbor, with one exception, which is Mark Williams to the west. In 2005, when the Odens retired and relocated, half of the original 20-acre parcel was purchased by us. We were offered the whole 20-acre parcel, but we could not afford it. So now we're looking to buy the balance of that back. At this time, we, along with our oldest son, Marco, his wife is here with me today. Her name is Sabrina. We're looking to purchase the additional 10 acres back to put that parcel back together. That would reassemble the entire original parcel that was owned by my grandparents. Marco and his wife Sabrina are looking to build one single family home, approximately 2,900 square feet, upon parcel B, and they will farm the balance of parcel B along with all of parcel A in an ag crop for the foreseeable future. At some point in time, my other middle son, Joey, would hope to build a similarly sized home upon parcel A, and he would also utilize the balance of the acreage to farm a suitable crop. So basically what's happening is with the minor amendment and change in the land use designation, you can see that the requested uses are in keeping with the area. Furthermore, the change in land use designation and zoning will allow for a more reasonable use of the subject property. There is a significant slough which runs through the parcel 010, and makes farming portions of it pretty difficult to farm it efficiently. The zoning and land use designation changes will also not have any adverse effect on any adjacent farming whatsoever, and will also serve to buffer nearby farms from animals that are currently located upon the parcel that I live on. The buffer resulting from the requested changes will actually enhance food safety for all surrounding farms. We sincerely appreciate your consideration of all the requested changes. Thank you for letting me speak with you today.
All right. And I should remind everyone that I open up the public hearing for both items, okay? So, you know, when we're discussing, whatever we're discussing the minor amendment and the rezoning item. So those arguments that you made apply to both.
Well, thank you.
All right, any questions from staff? I mean, not from staff. Any questions from the board to the applicant? I mean, she just stepped out, but, you know, we can always call her back if you have any questions. I think she made her presentation, but anybody else that wants to address the board on this item? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. We do have two particular items to make a decision on. One is the minor amendment, which again needs to be a positive so we can move on to the rezoning. So if you approve the minor amendment, you can make a motion to approve too. But if your motion is to deny it, then we need to open it up separately.
One more question.
Yeah, one more question?
Okay. Can you answer this?
Let me close the public hearing and then
Okay.
back to us, okay? So
Thank
I'm
you.
hereby closing the public hearing. Now you can step up. No,
Okay.
I just wanted to.
My question is, if we make this minor amendment for this property, how does that affect us future people who are trying to do the same thing?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bank, Supervisor Grassi, probably it will encourage, you know, likewise applications in the future, and people bringing their properties into compliance with the zoning. Some parcels in the area are not the 40 acres, so probably that will.
Okay.
That's what we've seen.
Well, that's always the case. We're always going to get that. We're always going to get that statement from you know, we're going to get conflicting statements. The attorneys are going to say that anything we do establishes a precedent, and then we're going to get the other side that says that if we stop people from doing what they need to do or want to do with their property, we'll be reducing the value of the property.
I
so,
agree.
you know, I was going to get that conflict. So, I personally happen to believe that the precedent is an issue that changes based on statute.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, what was in the past not permitted by statute, it's now obligated by statute. So that is a really difficult line we always navigate. And this is spoken as the only remaining long-time member of the board here.
I know.
Yeah, so, I mean, so it's very difficult to talk about precedent when members of the board have been here 4 years. But I've been here for a lot longer than that, and I can tell you precedent is precedent until the legislature decides to change that. Okay. And I think that when they pass that law that basically forces us to deal with values of properties, they sort of change that a bit. Because now when a person comes over and says, this is the best use of my property and this is the best value I can get from it, then we end up in a different situation than, okay, well, this is not good because it affects agriculture, which I think is the basis for your comment.
Yes.
Anyway, all right, so that was one question, and I think our fearless director of planning and zoning behind you trying to get here, you know, I always need to, you know, issue that declaration that if you're ahead, you should quit, but I don't think that applies to you, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. I just wanted to follow up on the presentation that Javier made. Keep in mind that based on the intended use for this property, what the property owners would like to do could be exempt or is exempt from zoning as long as the property remains in agriculture. Even if they decide to establish a residence on each of the 5 acres, it would still be exempt from zoning, providing the majority of the property remains in agriculture. Yeah. So they don't need a minor amendment or rezoning to
because of the ag exemption.
Yeah.
Establish
yeah,
residence.
but I think what they're trying to do is basically not make it more than a statement and make it a regular or a real split. Because I think that they want to, they want to know that they're living in their property versus living in their parents' or somebody else's property. I find that sometimes people, when they want to do the right thing, they end up in a situation where they can't do it. But in this particular case, I do understand they can do it, but it would be under a statute or under a situation that it's simply, it's a permitted use, but not necessarily a regulated one or a regular one. It's
They
just.
could, I'm sorry, they could still split the property even if the rezoning isn't approved.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So if we're not doing any damage, I think we need to move.
I'll make that motion.
So your motion is to go ahead and approve minor amendment number 2006 and at the same time approve rezoning case number 2019.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so there's motion and a second. There's some discussion on this? Any questions or comments from the board? None? If that, and then I'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? None. Motion carries. So go ahead and not multiply, but go ahead and do what you need to do.
Wonderful to have family close by.
Thank you.
Yes.
Number 3, Department of Development Services, Planning and Zoning Division, a rezoning case number 2020. Adrian Vega, agent for TDI Holdings LLC, requested. It's still raining bad, yeah?
It is raining out there.
Request the rezoning of parcel 6.69 gross acres in size from suburban range 4-acre minimum to suburban site build 2-acre minimum. Assessors parcel number 725-61-007, located approximately 800 feet north of the intersection of County 14th Street and Avenue 7E, Yuma, Arizona. For those people who live in an agricultural area, that sounds like a horse is peeing, so, it's okay.
Oh my gosh, I don't think so. I love that sound.
No, I know, but I'm sure people who live with horses will think of it as something else. All right, continue. This was just a break in the proceedings.
That was funny. Go ahead.
Well, you gotta break up the monotony.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can. Oh, wait. I'll go wait.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just laughing.
With 4-H kids all the time, so I suppose that's
Invigorating. I feel good about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Javier Barraza, senior planner, presented rezoning case 20-20. The intent is to create 3 parcels of approximately 2 acres in size for residential development. This is the zoning and vicinity map showing the subject parcel highlighted in red. Our property site is on the west along Avenue 7E and County 14th Street. Property is in desert terrain, unimproved. Parcel number 6 to the north is on suburban ranch 4-acre minimum, also in desert terrain. Parcels 1 through 5 are zoned suburban ranch 2-acre minimum, vacant properties. Parcels 48, 49, 50, and 51, part of the subdivision residue, properties improved with manufactured homes, zoned suburban ranch 2-acre minimum. Parcel 8, 9, and 10 are unimproved properties zoned suburban ranch 2-acre minimum. Parcel 12, 13, and 14 to the south, further south are properties improved with manufactured homes, zoned suburban ranch 2-acre minimum, as well as parcel 11, which is zoned suburban ranch 4-acre minimum. And we have parcel 197, 22, 001, within the city of Yuma. This is the site plan exhibit A provided by the applicant. This is how they plan to split the property if this gets approved. They're proposing an access easement on the south and an emergency vehicle, turnaround between parcel B and C. This is a view looking east at the subject parcel from Avenue 7 East. Now looking west of the subject parcel from the east side of the parcel. And a little bit in looking west from within the subject parcel towards Avenue 7E. This is a view looking north at Avenue 7E. See the gravel condition of the road. Now looking south at Avenue 7E from the northwest corner of the subject parcel. You can see the gravel and you can see the patch of paved portion of it in front of the properties on the south. I got that comment, but I did receive a comment from one resident, not within the notification area, in favor of this request and in favor of the conditions.
All right.
The planning commission recommends approval. Staff concurs with that recommendation. It shall be attached to following conditions within 60 days of board approval. The owner or agent shall provide an RS 12-1134 waiver, and record the following disclosure statement: infrastructure, navigation, range, and a schedule for development. Also, the following schedule for development. Within 1 year's board approval, the owner shall apply for and obtain a grading permit for the department from the Department of Development Services to improve the ingress-egress easement as proposed on Exhibit A, says Standard B. Also, number 2, within 1 year's board's approval, the owner shall submit certification from a licensed engineer confirming the roadway referred to in item number 1 of the schedule for development was constructed according to Standard B. Number 3, within 1 year's board's approval, the developer owner shall construct a 26-foot wide paved roadway in accordance with Yuma County Public Works Standard 2-100 along the west boundary of the subject parcel. The developer owner shall obtain improvement plans to the engineering department for review and approval. Number 4, within 1 year's board approval, the owner shall split the property by means of a land division permit according to section 507. Number 5, within 1 year's board approval, as part of item number 2 above, the owner shall record an ingress-egress easement 20 feet in width as depicted on Exhibit A. Mr. Chairman, this concludes this presentation. Applicants and AN are present, and I think they disagree with schedule for item number 3 of the schedule for development, but they will voice that concern.
All right. Any questions from staff before we move into the public hearing section of it? Now, again, the only item I think that is really left for discussion based on the presentation is the egress to the property, right? The improvements needed to access the property.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. We need the improvement fronting Avenue 70. The property fronts Avenue 70 has to be, where the condition will be to pave it according to Yuma County Public.
Are you actually requesting payment or the aggregate base? That we
Mr. Chairman,
normally...
historically, there have been other, let me show you that slide. There have been other cases approved by this board back in 2005, and the requirement being on all of them that the frontage be paved to according to that standard. So the only one that has not complied with that is the rezoning case 05-104. Therefore, it is conditional. Not being paid. So the other 4 cases, they did pay. They comply with that requirement.
Yeah, it's going to be, that's going to be an issue because of cost. But then again, we'll let the applicant, do their own, present their own case. Maggie, your statement.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the reason staff is recommending that Avenue 70 or the frontage along the subject property be paved is that Avenue 70 is public right-of-way. If it was a private easement, we would be requiring a penetration chip seal road, but it is public right-of-way, which requires that the road be improved to county standards.
I figure so as much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I said, we're not requiring we wouldn't be requiring a paved road if it was basically a private easement. We're doing that because it's public right away. Yes, Supervisor Bancroft.
Maggie, so the only part that we're requiring pavement is on 70. That one, yes, okay, good.
The frontage for the subject property.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here to discuss this item to step forward. None? Okay, then we'll take it back to the board. The recommendation of the planning and zoning and staff is that we approve the case with all the conditions as stated. Again, do you need to address the board on that? Well, then let me reopen the public hearing and listen.
Chairman, board members, I had an objection to the condition.
You need to state your name because although we've seen you before.
Trigona Israel, TDI Holdings, representing TDI Holdings as the manager. I've had an objection to condition number 3, and we've taken this up with P&Z as well. But based on where the conversations went at this point, I'm choosing not to debate and get into a discussion. So,
thank you. That saves us time.
Sorry?
Thank you. That saves us time.
Yeah, I figured.
And we understand. I mean, but as it was stated by Maggie, that's a requirement once it's dedicated right away, because essentially people are gonna question. There's always this precedent thing. We've asked everybody to do it now, so thank you very much for taking that stand.
I mean, the issue is not that, but it's the way it came about.
Yeah.
It
that's
wasn't, it didn't come up at the PA, it came up later.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to take it back to, close the public hearing, take it back to the board. Thank you, Mr. Israel. And so what we have here is a case that essentially has been recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the staff requiring certain things that now the owner has, or the representative of the owner has said are okay with him. So that takes that issue or argument off of it. Do I hear, does the board have any questions, or do I either hear a motion from the board to approve the case as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve rezoning case number 20-20
As presented.
as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we get the rezoning case number correctly, 2020?
Yep.
All right. Any more discussion on this item? If no more discussion, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The motion carries, and we move on now to the Department of Development Service Planning and Zoning Division for a reversion hearing, right? A reversion in public hearing, or reversion public hearing, which is, again, in accordance with our section 404.01 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. The board will conduct a public hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification. In the following case, Development Services Planning and Zoning Division, rezoning case, as we call it, 05-33, in accordance with Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum zoning classification on various zoning parcels located on Sierra Sands Drive near County 15th Street, Yuma, Arizona. And staff will provide a brief presentation on it. I did receive a letter, I think, for the record, where the owners requested that you take action to revert it, right?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Javier Barraza, Senior
All right.
Planner. It was, he's the owner of two properties. The properties will be parcel 19 and 18 on the north, within the hatched area and highlighted area. He did a formal request.
Okay.
This is the vicinity map showing the subject parcels that were rezoned back in 2006. This is the 5 acre minimum. And this is the original zoning map at the time. It was parcel 900. It was a proposed site plan. This is what it was supposed to be as a subdivision of the 8 parcel. And this is the outstanding of
Original.
schedule for development.
Sounds good.
We're gonna just item A and B. The developer at the time needed to apply for a tentative and then a final plat within 3 years. That was not done. Properties were split and sold. Living current owners with that schedule for development. This is the current condition of the area. Outlined in red is the subject properties. Current status, the original deadline to comply with the schedule for development was back in October 17, 2008. On December 17, 2012, the board approved a 3-year extension. And then a second time extension of 3 years on December 4, 2017. That deadline expired December 4, 2020. This will be the third time we take this for extend, for request to revert, or grant an extension of time. The schedule for development has not been met as of today. The board of supervisors has the following options. A, grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development. Or B, revert the zoning to its original RA10 zoning classification. And as I mentioned, there was a formal requested to revert to the original RA10 zoning. Now, if there's somebody else here present.
Yeah, well, let me open the public hearing so we can.
And with that, I'm open to any questions.
All right, are there any questions after this presentation? I'm going to open, thank you, I'm going to open the meeting to a public, and I suppose there'll be someone in the public that wants to address the board on this item?
Good morning, I'm Jerome Belucas, resident at 4474 West 16th Street currently. When you saw the map up there, I'm the owner of lot number 34. I originally purchased this, and I know two familiar faces, everybody else on the board. This will be maybe new material. This old development is long in the tooth, and I know you guys have looked at it several times. However, the reality of this is is I made an honest purchase to build a retirement home on what was presented, and the plat was presented, was very attractive to me and my wife, and we designed a home around that piece of property. I asked several times from many people without the county about, from realtors, both realtors and brokers and other people, they said, yep, that's a good deal, it looks like a good deal, you probably ought to do that, and the developer offered the lots up for sale. Now, to jump forward a little bit, when this came up and the developer went out of business or defaulted, I got offline conversations from people in the county development that the sale was unlawful. Now, I don't have any way to do that, any way to enforce that, other than the fact that this particular developer, as I found out later, was making a habit of doing shell games all throughout Yuma County and Imperial County with different properties and commercial properties as well as residential developments. So now here is the point where he has gone insolvent for quite some time, and I am now left holding the bag on property 34, which, with good intention to build a retirement home, now I have a piece of property on lot number 34 that the county assessor insists I have access to. I do not. Also, some of the people on the assessor's staff over there agree with me that there is no access to that land. That is landlocked. That is now landlocked. I do not have the wherewithal to finish the roads myself. I do not have the wherewithal to put in the utilities myself, which would actually make the plat viable as it was originally intended to be. They put in the base road and everything else. The county assessor insists that 5E, which is basically dirt going right down the side of the bombing range, gives me access to lot number 34. But if you look at that, it's just dirt that ATVs and RVs have been run up and down, back and forth, and that's all they use that for. It is so soft and unviable. The amount of money and time it would take to put aggregate in, put a firm foundation to build an access road is untenable. So for me to be able to look forward anyway in the future, I don't have an idea who's going to be involved. I know a couple of the properties have gone default for property taxes. I don't know how many of those have been. I don't know the intention of whoever owns 19 and 18, why they want to do the reversion. But now I'm left with a 5-acre piece of property that will be an RA10, and with it is landlocked, that I have really pretty much lost my entire investment on. Any questions for me?
Well, I don't know if it's a question. It's more a statement of, we're sorry that this happens. We keep delaying it so that hoping that somebody will step up and say, well, I'll finish it. Obviously, it's not going to be you. Obviously, it's going to take a lot more than somebody just stepping up. But I think that your problem in terms of access can't be handled if you had some sort of way of getting the rest of the property owners, if there is the rest of the property owners, to get on board and trying to develop at least 2 or 3 properties that will allow you to connect to some sort of road. And I'd be more than willing to state that I'd be more than willing to help you with whatever solution you come up with. I'm sorry that we as a county can't come up with a solution for you because you're landlocked in a situation that we can't fix. But if there's a way we can help you fix it, I'm sure staff and us would be more than glad to look into a situation that helps you to get some use out of that property that you purchased in good faith. That's the best way I think we can do. We can't, do more than that.
The cheapest thing would be to go to the original base that was put in. The base road was put in with side curbing. But to do that, you would have to go to the original plat, which would prevent you going back to the RA10. So I'm really on a rock and a hard place.
And we keep reverting, we keep avoiding reverting it, but I don't think that we're helping. It may be that once we do that, you end up with a situation you can actually see and work on. This way, it just looks like it's something usable, but it isn't because of the schedule for development was never met. So you may be, although this may not look like a solution, it may be a way to get something done, although it doesn't look like it at this point. We'd be more than glad to keep not reverting it if there was somebody that said, look, I'll step up and fix this, but I don't think that there is anyone that is at that particular point. And I think it may be easier for us to deal with a clean situation where we just have an issue, as opposed to this situation where we can't find anyone. The staff keeps, I mean, we made a policy not to keep doing reversions for reversion's sake, that we needed to have something happen, and this has been going on since 2012, so it's been a long time. Hopefully this, in some odd way, will help, move the process forward for you.
It would be odd, because the only other option is gonna be for me then is to purchase another 5-acre lot.
You have to be able to access your 5-acre lot. Maggie, you want something to say? Thank you. I mean, I don't know if really a thank you is in order here, but it's more like, we're sorry.
We're sorry.
Well, I understand. I know a lot of you, well, two of the familiar faces, but actually, yours might have been the only one that was here at the time that the plat was approved.
It was.
I think I was here when the county was formed, but,
Yeah, I had, Mr. McLeod, I had several conversations with him offline. I mean, they're all sympathetic, because I guess you passed a rule that shortly after this, the developers can no longer sell until the plat is fully recorded.
That's right.
And if I'd have known that piece of information, I don't think I'd ever purchased it. I was buying this in good intention to fill, and I've got house plans. I've got house plans on that site that I've updated twice, and they're just completely unusable.
We're sorry, we really are.
Just kind of stating the way it fell out to me. So, thank you for your time.
Maggie, I'm sorry, we're sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if the Board of Supervisors reverts the zoning to RA10, that gives this current property owner the ability to request rezoning to RA5 or SSP5 in the future and propose a way to develop that property, obtain access, and...
Yeah, in other words, I know that it sounds really bad, but reverting it back allows him a process. The way it is right now, it's part of a process that can be completed. So in an odd way, because he probably now feels like, oh, Jesus, and now I have a 5-acre parcel in the middle of a bunch of, and a larger acre parcel that I can't develop because I don't own it. But essentially, it oddly enough, it gives him a pathway forward to solve his problem sometime. Thank you, Maggie. Supervisor Pancrase?
Mr. Chair, is there any way that we could waive the fees for him to rezone it to 5 acres?
That would be
Because
Mr. McLeod's main objection.
I
Every time you
know.
talk about waiving the fees.
I know, but if we could, once it's reverted back to 10 acres, then we could waive his fees to get it rezoned to 5 acres. And then he could have his 5-acre parcel and go from there.
Ma'am, I don't think that the fee is going to be the problem. The fee is very small.
I know, but
The issue for him to get to solve his problem is much more expensive than that. It's an access issue. It's not a fee issue. What's the fee for a rezoning case? If you may ask you.
100 what?
1,040 plus $40 per acre?
Yeah. Well, that may sound like a lot. His issue is much more.
Yeah, I know. But this would be
Yeah, I know, you're trying to be helpful, and I
Yeah.
know that what you're trying to do is accommodate someone that's already been damaged financially to try to alleviate his problem. But I need to remind you that the fees are there to pay for the time and, the time that staff has. And if we start waiving fees every time somebody gets hurt by somebody else, I think that when the situation is created by us, I think there's a lot more inclination, at least from me, to waive a fee. But I don't think this is one of those issues where the county was involved in creating a situation that the gentleman here is facing. I think that that's going to be a little bit less direct than the cases that we've dealt with where we waived the fee. I think the cases where we dealt the fee, where we waived the fee, were cases where our action created a situation that basically our actions ended up causing the financial strain. I don't think in this particular case our actions are creating a strain for the gentleman. I think our actions are giving the gentleman, strangely enough, a pathway to solve his problems, okay?
Mr. Chairman, however, he could request that the property be rezoned through a commission initiative.
Yeah, that way
which will be
the
done at
commission
no
can do
cost
it.
to the property owner.
That's right. There are other ways that we can help you. But start the process to waive a fee. It's a little difficult.
Okay.
We're the remains of some of the older conservative ways to deal with this stuff. So anyway, I'm going to close the public hearing, move it back to the board. Just in case there's any questions, would you just simply stand there just in case? All right, good. So is there any questions for the gentleman here? If not, then I'll entertain a motion by the board to go ahead and revert this property back to its original zoning or extend more time for development to happen. What's it gonna be?
I'll make a motion to
Revert?
revert.
Okay, the motion is to revert this property back to its former zoning. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Is there a discussion on this motion? If there's no discussion on this motion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, and hopefully we'll help you in whatever way we can. The next item is discussion regarding legislative issues. When county attorney notifies, it's time to place this item, and this is my instructions I'm reading now. So, county administration, the item is for county administration, which is discussion and possible action. If you guys want to talk about it, you need to step out.
Guys, can you go
Hey.
outside? Thanks.
Okay, so we're going back to this. County administration, discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items. A report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impact to Yuma County. An update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priority. Ian, or Ian, whatever, can you take it?
You are rare.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ian McGahey.
Oh, Ian, okay, Ian.
Deputy County Administrator. I'll update you briefly on a few items. It's different every time. There we go. Last week, the 55th Arizona State Legislature convened for the first time. Karen Fann was once again named Senate President. Rusty Bowers was also reelected as Speaker of the House. So far, the first regular session has been described as more subdued, with access to the legislature strictly restricted, of course, due to COVID-19. So far, about 562 bills have been posted.
That's not very many.
That's correct.
Okay,
The CSA Legislative Policy Committee met on Friday and reviewed 7 of those bills. Of the 7 presented, the committee voted to take positions on 5 of them, opposing 4 and taking a neutral position on the 5th. I'm just going to hit these really quickly. HB 2025 would grant a county treasurer the authority to waive delinquent property taxes without approval of the Board of Supervisors. They've chosen to oppose that. HB 2057 would prohibit counties from requiring an applicant for a land division to conduct a survey as a condition of approving the land division or conveyance or issuance of a building permit, among other things, and the LPC felt it would open up counties to additional liability. SB 1043 would expand eligibility for the PSPRS cancer insurance program to all retirees regardless of prior cancer diagnosis. The LPC felt it was premature to expand benefits to almost double the current population without more information and voted to oppose the bill. SB 1045 would expand the existing health insurance subsidy to all Tier 3 defined contribution PSPRS and Corp employees, among other items. LPC voted to oppose that. And SB 1057 would allow for change orders to be worked into the monthly progress payments for contractors and subcontractors while providing finance protections for the counties. The LPC voted to take a neutral position on that bill.
So taking a neutral position means taking no position?
That's correct.
All right, good.
On Friday, Governor Ducey released his recommended fiscal year 2022 state budget, and the Joint Legislative Budget Committee released its JLBC baseline. Here are just a few highlights. The $12.6 billion budget lays out $200 million in tax cuts and $290 million in new spending. The governor stated that the $200 million in unspecified income tax cuts are expected to increase to $600 million by fiscal year 2024. He called for $33 million to lay 195 miles of broadband conduit and fiber optic cable along I-40 from Flagstaff to the California border, $10 million to expand the Arizona Commerce Authority's Rural Broadband Grant Program, $19 million for the Arizona Healthy Forest Initiative to expand the state's hazardous vegetation removal and wildfire prevention efforts, and $18 million to close the state's Florence Prison Complex and contract with a third-party provider for inmates that cannot be housed within the existing Department of Corrections system. I've reached out to some state legislators, well, actually all the state legislators that represent Yuma County, to arrange for a virtual meeting where this board can share its legislative priorities with our representatives. I've heard from 4 of our 6 who say that Monday, this coming Monday, January 25th, at 10:30 a.m. would work for them. You may have seen a save the date email from Desiree. This meeting would be conducted via Zoom. Board members and representatives do not have to convene in one location. It's at your convenience where you're Zooming in from. So before I confirm this with our legislators, I wanted to make sure that that particular date, and I know it's right around the corner, works for you or most of you, or how you'd like to proceed with that.
First of all, I don't have a problem with the date. What I'd like to see is a sort of a pre-program sort of presentation. Not a presentation that we have to attend to, but more like, send us, I like to see some pre-questions or questions that can be, addressed by them, for them to get it before the day of the meeting, so they have a chance to talk about it or to think about it. In other words, I don't want to have a meeting where we just open up the meeting and then we start asking questions and they're not ready to answer. So as many questions as we can come up with that they can get before we have the meeting, the better off, I think, the more valuable I think the time spent on the meeting would be. And then we need to also say, okay, we're having the meeting from 10:30 to noon, for example, or 10:30 to 11:30 or something, so that everybody knows, okay, there's a definite time frame that we need to discuss this. Otherwise, as it is with the chairmen of the Board of Supervisors and legislators, this could go on for a long time.
Yes.
Especially
So,
chairmen.
we need to sort of say,
Especially
hey,
what?
well, this meeting will take place between
Tony?
this
I
time.
know.
As chairmen of the Board of Supervisors, and legislators would have a tendency to talk too much. So,
Taking long to pick up.
so the more you can put it as a prepared, program that gives us guidance, the better off we'll be, I think. And if you are able to, before the meeting at 10:30, just send us not only the link, but the list of questions that they will be likely addressing. And if you're a board member and you have a specific question about something, please supply it to Ian so that he can add it to it.
Water,
So that,
agriculture.
okay? I think that will
Education.
help us get through the items faster.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anything else that you would like to suggest for this meeting? And again, this is a Zoom meeting. We're not set up in this particular location to have a Zoom meeting. If you want to be here, you have to be upstairs, and if you're gonna come, we need to post it. If more than two of you or 3 of you, if more than 2 of you are gonna come, we need to post it as a meeting.
It will be posted
Or
anyway
it will be
because you're
posted
all
anyway. So
participating
physically,
via Zoom.
it's just a physical thing.
So
right?
we'll
It's
have
a
we'll go ahead
separation
and
thing.
have the administrative conference room available, but I would suggest not more than 3 board members.
Yeah, that's what I guess that's what I was
Yeah.
getting at.
Upstairs.
We'll try to avoid getting together in a small confined space as much as possible. I mean, we're telling people not to do that, so please, so if you're gonna come, just let us know ahead of time so we can make arrangements.
I can stay away.
One, Mr. Chair, we've talked about several properties that there's a lot of junk and that it's not moved or cleaned up. We gotta go through yeah. Could that be something? I know back years or some years they looked at it, the legislators, and they didn't move through it, or they didn't approve it, or maybe one of them can pick it up again and look into it.
Yeah.
It'd be easier for us to
How do we
deal
address
with
it?
it.
How do we address the issue of having to go into private property, clean it up, once everything has been exhausted? I guess, the financial cost and the ability that we have to do that, to be discussed. Is that what you?
To move faster. I mean, yeah. I mean,
Oh, the timeline to be faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, those are the kind of questions I think that you want to ask. For example, I would say that what's the outlook for a tax, for a transportation tax or a gasoline tax, for example? Because that is one of those issues where I think we're moving backwards in this state. I mean, obviously with the advent of more and more electric cars and more, I mean, less people traveling with gasoline vehicles. It just seems to me the fact is that the funding process to provide for us to deal with road issues is diminishing as time goes by. And it has a lot to do with the fact that the allocation is based on collection of gas taxes.
From 1988. Mm-hmm.
Where did we go with, I'm trying to remember, with ADEQ as far as waste, allowing waste into our counties?
Oh, that's the liquid waste,
The liquid waste from California.
I think that they like to forget it, but we're not going to.
We're not gonna forget it.
Yeah, we need to have control, the counties need
Yeah,
to have.
I think that we need to approach that as having a little, having the counties have a more control over that issue as is now. The Department of Environmental Quality has control over that, and they really, that's not a process that impacts them as it impacts us. It's the same thing with the water transfers. The water transfers is something that impacts us, and we have very little authority over that. The people that are asked to make a comment or approve it are not people from the county. They're people from the state, which have a different viewpoint, I think, in terms of, and I am reminded of a case where we were trying to emphasize the need for multifamily development in smaller areas, like rural areas, and they kept insisting that the points be given to projects that were near public transit. And they were talking about metro. So we kept saying, well, look, how many miles of metro of metro are they in the state? And how many miles of that are in the rural areas? That's impossible to achieve. So that's kind of like the way I feel about everything being driven out of the Phoenix area, the metropolitan area, because they think in terms of how it impacts them. Anyway, this is just too long, but I mean, some of those issues are the ones I want to talk about. How are you going to protect the rural nature of the area we're in at the same time that you work towards getting as many benefits as you can from the state? We got the same issue with vaccines. Vaccines is a pretty big issue to me that we need to talk to. What can they do to help us make our case at the legislature that this is not, Pinal County or something, in the middle of everything, that our population spikes in ways different than other areas. But anyway, look, this could become a very long meeting. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have some comments or questions that you want to address by our legislators, please make sure that Ian gets them before next Monday. Okay. Ian,
A couple more slides, Mr. Chairman. An item of interest for Yuma County that's been under the radar so far is HB 2077, related to the reinstatement of the State Lake Improvement Fund, otherwise known as SLIF. This is a grant program that's, over its history, has provided funding for a number of Yuma County lake-related projects and other improvements, as you can kind of see on the chart. Something to keep an eye on. As you requested, I've reached out to other Yuma County elected officials to hear what some of their legislative priorities are. I'll be continuing conversations with them this week. Update on PM10. Work continues with ADEQ on PM10, which of course you know is particulate matter, 10 microns or smaller. ADEQ facilitated 4 stakeholder meetings in Yuma County back in December to gather input on obtaining a reasonable control exemption to the EPA exceptional events rule. Last week, they took additional input from our development services team. ADEQ will continue accepting public comment, coordinating with EPA before submitting its final rulemaking proposal sometime this summer. So items that still need to be worked out include funding for mitigation of PM10 sources such as paving or other remediation of unpaved roads, as well as enforcement issues. So there'll be more meetings in the coming weeks to further address those and other concerns.
Before you leave that,
Yes.
and I do want to make a point here. With the changes in the administration, we used to have a champion for this PM10 issue. It used to be Senator Flake, then it became, I think it was Senator, I don't know what else. But the point is, I don't think we right now have a point person, and it's going to be difficult to get a point person at the federal level to deal with regulations that impact, these areas, for example, because PM10 and the other regulations are federal regulations, EPA regulations. You need to get help from the federal government. I'm not sure we've made the case yet to the current senators, Mr. Kelly and Mrs. Sinema, that we need to sort of, and it goes into, I should have waited because part of my statement was going to be this virtual visits, this virtual field visits that are coming up in March, because by now we are now getting indications from NACO that the visits to the hill visits, that they still want to have them, but they want to have them virtually. So that is going to require some coordination, and I want that PM10 issue to be brought up to our representatives in Congress And I know we're not gonna get much help from Raul Grijalva, for example, but because it's regulations and it's clean water, clean air regulations, and there's I think it's a perception that anything that you do that diminishes that somehow diminishes the federal, task of keeping, the air and the water clean. But in this particular case, we can make arguments about the uniqueness of Yuma County and because of the border location. And we need to make sure that our representatives and our senators, if the representative's not gonna be one to push the project, at least let not be the ones to,
Yes.
hold it back, okay?
Right.
So we need to start doing that. In other words, the lobbying needs to begin soon.
Very soon.
All right.
The new-
Continue,
Mr. Chairman,
sir.
that leads perfectly into my final slide, which is a lobbying opportunity that you just mentioned. The NACO Virtual Legislative Conference, of course, will be virtual this year, coming in March. Registration is now open. As you mentioned, virtual advocacy with congressional leaders, committees, and senior White House and federal agency officials is scheduled from March 24th through March 26th.
Let me just state what to me is the issue here. The issue here is that we're making all these statements about COVID and about separation. But at the same time, I see that that's going on nationwide. So the issue to me is not meeting with them in person, really, because I think that we, instead of having this big deal where we go there for 5 days or 10 days, it could be just a 1 day or 2 day trip by 3 or 4 members or 2 or 3 members that can actually do this presentation. I don't think I understand that we're in the Zoom generation or whatever it's called or moment in time. But I think that personal contact, that discussion that you have with the staff and they get to see you and know your issues, that can be done as well virtually as it is in person. So I would suggest that we do some sort of hybrid combination where, not everybody goes because we're not going to the March 8th to 24th or whatever, that we're only scheduling one. I was the one that suggested that we had some virtual meetings before this came up. But the more I thought about it, the more I found out myself, that my feelings on it are that there's nothing that replaces that personal contact you have with your members of Congress. And they, as long as you don't do it the same day that everybody does it, so that you don't end up in a situation where, everybody's there, right? So they schedule this appointment, or they schedule, now the senators are scheduling a breakfast, right? They're not even scheduling, your private meetings with them. They want you to meet in a breakfast and tell them in a breakfast what you need in your county. That diffuses the actual purpose to me of the trip, which is to get your stuff in front of them with the proper staff members that can actually do something. So to me, maybe a hybrid situation where we go to all these meetings that the NACO Association has, put together for us. In other words, we do what we're supposed to do at NACO, but we separate some time, a couple of days, for some of us to travel to Washington and actually do this physical meeting. I'm talking about a combination of staff and board members, maybe 2 staff and 2 board members that will go and do these presentations to these people in person. I think it's still worth, if they're allowable, if they allow that, and if they do that, then I think it may be that we need to pursue some sort of a combination of a virtual meeting with a regular face-to-face request. Okay? We can work on it and find out which members are available, which members can do it, and then we'll pick a couple and see, okay? Or maybe more than a couple. I think it's time. I think we've had a year worth of separation, but and I think that what it does to me is it tells me, let's not do this in a group setting. Let's do this more in an individualized setting where you keep the numbers to 5 or 6 people, and you follow the guidelines, but you still have that personal situation that nothing replaces that. I have found this year especially that nothing replaces the fact that you can pick up the phone and talk to someone you've seen. You put a face to that phone, and I know that Zoom's supposed to put a face to the phone, but it's not the same. I think people put you on a blank screen and you don't know if they're eating or drinking or something, or you don't even know if they're in the room. It could be in some other room and you're talking to someone that isn't there. That's a little more difficult to do when you're in person. So anyway, that's it. I'm sorry, taking too long. Okay, any questions for Ian? No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
And we'll move on to the staff, the event calendar, current events, air forms, event calendar. So who wants to begin? Lynn?
Yes, go ahead. I will.
Please
Okay.
don't put us to shame.
I was sick for a week and a half, so I don't have a whole lot. I met with a constituent over in an area where we need to get rid of some properties that have not kept their areas cleaned up, and it's a county island. I attended the CSA legislative policy meeting. I attended the open meeting law for a while. I couldn't stay for all of it, but I attended most of that, and that's it.
Oh, it's still raining.
Boy, that's not very many for me.
I know. Good. Supervisor Porteous, I think this time it's gonna go to the right there.
Attended the GYDC, well, on the phone. And that was pretty much it. And I just want to say I feel a lot better now.
Thank goodness.
Came out negative, and there was a couple of days there that were really tough on me. So, but I'm still here. So.
Well,
I have to deal with
I don't
me
know,
for a while
that's
now.
debatable,
Chair.
but it's debatable, but it's okay. Supervisor Simmons.
Attended the Welton Mohawk Irrigation District Board meeting. Had a community meeting out in the foothills reference to some property they have some issues with. Had also attended the elected officials training. Met with another subject out in the East County reference some zoning issues. Took a run out to Martinez Lake to look at how the new road's going out there. It's seems weird driving down it and not having any whoop-de-doos to
Oh,
drive
no
through.
dips? Woo-hoo.
There's no dips whatsoever in it. They've got it flattened out, and I think it's April or May timeframe they're looking at having it all paved, but they've got culverts over the washes, so we shouldn't run into those issues as far as flooding and isolating them for days at a time. So it's looking pretty good once they get it done.
Good.
Met with a few people out there, happened to get phone calls from some people out there over some issues. Luckily, I was right there in the area, so we stopped and met with them. Also, virtually or through Zoom or whatever you want to call it, the Governor Ducey's State of the State message.
I did that too.
And that's about it.
Okay. Supervisor Lyons, I want to begin by thanking you for actually making it to the meeting, because there's so many things that are required from new members. I mean, today, if I read this correctly, there was a new supervisor orientation hosted by the Yuma County, by the County Supervisor Association. I know it's a webinar, but still though. And I go ahead, sorry. I'm just
No, go ahead,
say,
go ahead.
No, it's fine. You go ahead.
No, don't give him any more time. He gets
No.
bored.
I just
No,
wanted
he
to
doesn't
say,
need any more
I
time to
thought
talk.
me missing. Otherwise,
He's
I would have
done.
said, let's get the group picture together.
Participated in GYDC online, and also the Governor Ducey's budget rollout and state priorities. Also participated in the call with Representative Dunn. And attended in person the change of command for Command Sergeant Major Leekland, who retired after 30 years out at MCAS Yuma, and met with the new commander and Colonel Suggs for a formal introduction there, and participated in several trainings along with the open meeting law, and I have a couple more this week.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I want to start by thanking the attorneys for conducting that conflict of interest open meeting training. I showed up a little late, but I was here for some of it. Not that I think some of us think we need it. I mean, we've been through it many times, but it is always, there's always something new that comes out of these meetings, and it's always a learning process. So I do want to commend that, just the fact that the attorney's office took the time to try to train us again on that. And we only have one new member who's sort of familiar with a lot of the stuff anyway, but it was nice to see that the effort was made to keep everybody up to date with that. So thank you very much. There are issues, I think, that we need to discuss probably as a board in the future regarding the administrative hours and when we're open. I mean, there seems to be, the county's going through one of those upticks in infection rates for COVID that, that there's, at least there's been some minor conversations about changing the hours or changing the times or the days or closing and do this by appointment. There's been some minor discussion about that. My feelings personally are that, we can't, I know that the building on the other side of the street is by appointment only, but I sort of feel like we're losing touch and losing contact with people. It doesn't necessarily advance the cause. I mean, I think that the precautions that are being taken right now, the temperature checks and, you know, the mask wearing and the hand cleaning, I think that they're enough to tell people we're serious about it, but I really hate to close the building, administrative building, to people. I know that we want to send a message, please don't congregate, but I think we do that by having some of these restrictions. I'm not inclined to think. I think that the fact that you can only do appointments with the assessor, the recorder, and you know, that the rat team, as I call it, from the other side, it's a little bit of an overkill situation. I don't want to interfere with the way they want to run it, but I do believe that my personal feelings about this is that, you know, you want to be as open as possible. You want to give people a sense of normalcy at the same time that you restrict some of the activities that happen. And I think we've done that. We've balanced that by opening up some days and being closed other days to people. And, you know, I think that's the balance that I like to see. I don't know if the rest of the board feels that we need to close or something. We could discuss it at a board meeting, but to me, right now, we're just sort of, I think, taking the approach that we will do restrictions and we will follow them, but we don't want to cut off access to people when they walk in. Although there's not that many walk-ins, I know. I still feel that we send the right message by saying, look, if you have to, you can come in. But if you don't, call up and make appointments. We do make appointments. Let me see what else. I do want to thank the staff, especially Susan and Kevin and everybody that's been keeping everything going while this emergency situation is happening. Because, you know, whether it's drafting a letter for the governor, whether it's, you know, doing other things or keeping in touch, I know making announcements, Ian is taking, you know, some of the weight and the load. I mean, everybody stepped up, and I want to tell you, some of us, all of us probably noticed, you know, that things keep going, and they keep going well, and the county's operating, although it's operating under difficult circumstances. I don't think much of it has to do with what we do, in as much as what you do, the administration does, from Desiree to everybody else, to Susan and everyone that helps, Kevin, Ian, even Maggie. I mean, everybody's it's doing their part, and that's what I think we can always say, that the county is operating well. I don't particularly like all those, you know, statements where the county is doing better, because I don't know. That's an opinion, but we are doing well, and I think that, again, it's a reflection more of the staff than it is of the board of supervisors, although I like to take credit for it. Right, I think that's enough. Is there anything else? I think we got 5 minutes until noon. Susan, you have 5 minutes?
I can probably do 1 minute. I attended the CSA training on engaging with the legislature, as well as the training by the county attorney's office on open meetings law and conflict of interest. I took training on improving web-based meetings. So I just need to train the other people who are putting on our web-based meetings. Arizona Border Counties Coalition, we had a video call with Senator Mark Kelly, and that was very good. I'm putting together, along with our public works and engineering staff, some specific infrastructure projects that we would like to potentially have addressed, in addition to the widening of Highway 95. And a number of other issues that are already on Senator Kelly's radar. I attended the NACO Deferred Compensation and Retirement Advisory Committee that I serve on for NACO for the next 3 years, and the monthly County Managers Association meeting. And we're actually sharing our resources related to the redistricting process. So I shared my the draft RFP that Yuma County has prepared, and we'll be sending that out soon. Are you familiar with when the census people are going to actually issue their population count? Because it was delayed. I have heard that that information will be released February 28th, but I think the requirement is by mid-April. So it's somewhere in that window of time.
All right. Okay. Any questions? Anybody? Anything? Anyone? Okay, that's it. Okay, so 11:57. We are done with the morning session. Thank you very much, everybody.